on yet?
All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics and Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Y'all know that if it is Friday, y'all know it is time for All Politics or Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Well, listen, y'all. Y'all know that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of breaking news in the Black community, particularly with us locally. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. We're going to talk to some experts and try to get some answers. So, of course, we're going to, have that conversation first. And then, of course, we've got some guests coming through. Zaid, you want to talk about who's coming up at 6?
Well, 6, we're going to have back our own real answer. And I get real personal about her because she is so personal to me, right? So I'll try and be objective and professional. All right. The director of the newly established Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery, Keesha Eure, will be joining us any minute. We're looking for her to come in. It's been a minute since she's been on with us, and a lot has happened with that formation and its building out since she's been with us. And so many things have happened on the community side related to the importance of that work, making her appearance or reappearance with us very timely. And of course, you were alluding to some of the local drama that we have been facing. We had just in next door, East Orange, New Jersey, we had a case of a missing child who was just found, thankfully, right? But there's a lot has yet to be said about the circumstances of both her disappearance and her reemergence. So it's a heavy discussion of the importance of all those of us who work in violence reduction and violence interruption is an important piece to talk about always in our community. Yep, second, we've got to vote. We've got to vote, and we were supposed to have Conrad and Rukia Conrad Tillard and Rukia Lumumba with us to give us their response to these recent elections. Right, we had a local response last week, but we're going to hear from our folks who are in New York and Mississippi, and have that national flavor to further amplify the significance of that discussion. And then at 8 o'clock, the great Rahaman Muhammad, Deputy Mayor Rahaman Muhammad, is going to join our own Jonathan Austin, to talk about an age-old debate question that goes way back to the Lincoln Douglas debate days, and that is, do unions have the right to strike? I know I got a lot to say about on that one. So it's a full house. We got a full house tonight, as always, and it's going to be a loaded show. We look forward to the ride.
Yep. And so, of course, y'all know that that's Brother Zaid. He's one of the co-hosts, and of course, myself. I'm Ed Riley. I saw Donna a moment ago. She popped in and popped out, so she's another co-host. So I guess she'll be with us as soon as she get her technology straight.
Yes.
So, but let's talk a little bit about it, Brother Zaid, before, Brother Dashan is with us too. One of our, community journalists who is on with us from time to time, co-hosting. Peace, Brother Zaid. Peace, Brother Dashan. I see.
Hotep family.
Peace, brother.
Hotep.
So I see Brother Dashan is with us. What's good, Brother Dashan? You out there in the field, brother?
I'm on my way to a more secure spot so I can finish joining you, for the show.
Okay.
Yeah, brother. Yeah. So like I said, I'm not gonna jump off the broadcast. I'm gonna stay the whole time till I get to where I need to get to, which will be less than 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, we were about to start a conversation, man, in regards to, until Keesha gets here, with some of what's been going on, in our community. Of course, the streets are on fire right now, based
Definitely.
around what has occurred. We thank God for the young sister having been found, Josiah Moore, that she's been found. However, there's some disturbing things that are now coming out in regards to her, going missing for over a month. By the way, let me just introduce Donna, one of our other co-hosts. She just came in. You want to say what's up to the people, Donna?
Hey, good evening. And Welcome to another night of All Politics are Local. But I want you to go ahead in because I want to hear about this young woman who has been missing for some time, and this whole and the disturbing news that we had heard, of course, particularly persons of color missing, and how when persons of color go missing, they also go unnoticed and they don't get as much as media play. But thank God for social media and us using our own network, be it Instagram, Black Twitter, or whatever. It helped. And as I understand it, somebody noticed her through our means of communication and she was found. But I'll let you pick it up there, Eure.
Yeah. So that's what we heard. We heard that, of course, she, had been between the Bronx and between, Brooklyn, and then, between the Bronx and Harlem, and some folks had noticed her there in Harlem, and of course, she has not, from what I understand, has not been returned to her mother when as of yet when she got back. In fact, I heard that the mother has been arrested for some alleged child abuse charges, and so at this particular point, it is a very messy story, because the facts are starting to come out somewhat. I mean, we don't know why this child would run away from home at 14 years old, but it's being alleged that she was being neglected and that she was being abused. So at this particular point, it is a very, very sad story. I think what's even more real, and I'm sure Keisha can help us with this. I think what is more traumatizing is that when our young people get in trouble like that, or that they're living in households where they don't feel like there's any help in the household, they don't really know what avenues to go to outside of the house to get some help. So, but we have to thank God that nothing happened to her on
Absolutely.
that journey for over a month, right? That
Absolutely.
she was able to survive somehow without nothing tragic happening to her, right? And that
Yeah.
she was able to be found. And then we ought to say thank you to Brother Zaid and Donna. We ought to say thank you to all of the activists that turned the heat up,
That's when you took the
right?
words out of my mouth.
Yeah, I think we should say thank you to them, right? And we should name them like Brother Brother Sharif
Sharif,
Amenhotep,
I'm in
right?
Hotep.
We should say thank you to that brother, right? Because he didn't know the personal facts of the case, right? But his heart was in the right place. I mean, he went out there. And remember, we talking about a brother who lost his own child,
That's right.
right? And so for him being out there, this was very
And
personal.
Ed, and let's put a pin right in there because he did lose his own child. Something is going to weigh on his heart a lot different than it weighs on other people's heart because I'm sure he doesn't want every anybody else's outcome to be as his outcome
That's
was.
right.
So I'm sure it becomes a personal quest, if you will, for him. And if anybody watches Law and Order, the early days, and now the sister that plays in Chicago Med, who used to play the police captain or chief back then, she's one of the sisters who has an organization that helped missing, um, lost and missing Black young people. And
Right.
she used to have a show that used to come on TV, but it didn't get, for whatever reason, enough airplay, so it was canceled. But
What are we talking about now, Donna?
think of Law and Order, the woman who used to play the chief or the captain, but now she plays in Chicago Med as the head of the hospital. I can't, the sister.
Okay.
Think of Law and Order, and she was the
Okay.
captain.
Yes,
But
yes, yes. I got you.
she has an
I got you.
organization. She has an organization now for missing young black people, and it used to have a show, but the airtime it did not get the airtime, so it was canceled. So, but she does have an organization that goes and particularly looks for missing young black girls, and I just, and Ed, you said you don't know what happened, but I will say I can remember being a teenager at 15 years old, and teenager, it just seems like the world is just so heavy at that time. So,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, you think that nobody ever been through what you've been through, and
Right.
your mother never been young. You know all of that. You know all of
Right.
that, and so you know, and it's just, and while she may have somebody to talk to, we don't realize that our parents have been where we're going.
Right.
So it's, you know, but here's the thing, she lives to tell her story, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully these things will be worked out, and and like you said, Keesha will be able to help us navigate through these things. But peer pressure, teenage, because when I heard it this morning, and I heard that somebody found her wandering through the streets of New York, I was like, my God. You know, like, thank God that she's alive. So, whew, you know.
Let me
Right.
just add a few things very quickly. I was trying to put something on our screen, and it's just taking a minute to load up. But I want to go back to Sharif Amenhotep for a moment, not just because he's somewhat deeply personal to me as Keisha is. Sharif, of course, has served under me in the New Black Panther Party and is still very much in the New Black Panther Party. And when his daughter went missing, and her name is Sanaa Amenhotep, naming, we have our people cross over into the ancestry. It's important to give those names,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's right.
As we
That's right.
name Sanaa Amenhotep, her father, with the help of the southern wing of the New Black Panther Party, rolled all the way down to South Carolina and had to shake that community up to get at trying to find his daughter. And in the process of that, it was revealed that there was about 4,000 missing young people in that community, and not all of them were black either. 4,000 missing young people. So it raised the question of how policing is done. How policing is done when it comes to missing folks. Now, when it comes to homicides, they say the first 48 hours is key in putting an investigation together. But when somebody is missing, they wait 24 to 48 hours before they even get serious, right? And we think that's a backwards paradigm. So what Sharif did uh, is shake that town up and raise a question, an important question that calls for a paradigm shift in investigative policing when it comes to missing persons, and of course, the question of race and gender sharpens how pathetic the paradigm that we know has been. It is that vigor, and I mean, and it's not wasn't just a New Black Panther Party that shook folks up. To I got my sons and daughters from the North Anti-Violence Coalition rolled down there.
That's right.
They rolled down there and they participated in that, right? And they came back, with fire. Sharif's mother has an organization to support families who have lost children in these kind of circumstances. Not Sharif's, Sanai's mother has an organization that helps families who have gone through what they just went through. But the vigor of what Sharif did, the vigor of what our folks did from Newark, going all the way down to South Carolina to help with that paradigm, right? They brought that vigor back with them
Right.
to Newark into Essex County. And when this child went missing, they went into action. And here, thankfully, at least there was, we had an East Orange Police Department, a small town police department that realized that, we do need help. Anybody who wants to help, come on in and help, and it helped create the atmosphere for all eyes, regardless of where they were, in connection with this young daughter of our community, but for all eyes to be lifted and to pay attention to who she was. And then it's apparently as a consequence of so many venues and what's the word I'm looking for? Platforms and whatnot being turned up around this young daughter, that somebody in fact saw her in, of all places, New York City, a long way from East Orange for a 14-year-old, and that led to the beginning of her ultimately uh, being found. Now, of course, the secondary questions about what's going on with the mother now, where this child is now in terms of custody, all that is still an insensitive space because it's at the very front end of a new investigation. I have been in touch with someone I know from the prosecutor's office on the victim's service side, who we're going to try and have next week to talk on about that dimension that needs to be addressed also. After a child is found, whether dead or alive, what then should play out in terms of support for families in those kind of circumstances? And I would dare say few of us probably know the answers to that off the top of our heads. Next week we will hope to have someone who can provide some answers for that as we continue to really help that discussion move along. I'm going to drop on. I want folks to see this. Donna, you were talking about S.E. Patha Murkison, right?
Yes, right.
They called her Lou. She was a lieutenant.
Lieutenant, right. And the name of the show. The name of the show was the name of the show that I was referring to was called Find Our Missing
on TV1.
And it aired on
TV1.
Yeah, it was on TV1, right?
And the foundation is called Black and Missing Foundation. I did find that.
Well, and I remember Black and Missing Foundation were one of the people that put up Josiah's picture, by the way. Good. They jumped in that too this week. They actually put it on the Facebook page and on their website. They made sure that this story was given attention, and also we have to applaud The View. And even before this past Sunday, when the search teams were organized.
Wait. So you said even on The View, they covered this?
Yesterday.
Oh my God, that's great, man.
Yesterday,
I think that's what did it, brother. It was all that y'all turned it up, man.
Yesterday or Wednesday, right?
Cameron Moore did something last week also. Not on the case in particular, but on the broader case of missing Black women and teens.
Who did something, Saeed? I'm sorry.
Cameron Moore.
Oh, Tamron Hall.
Cameron Hall.
Cameron Moore. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
All running together. Okay. Get over. Right.
But that just to go, like I said, so Find Our Missing and the Black and Missing Foundation, when we have these shows that kind of zone in our communities and issues that are going on in our community, it makes a difference. It really does.
Yeah, they do. They do. All resources can make, all those kind of resources definitely can make a difference.
But that's why I think, not to cut you off, Dashawn, but that's why I think we ought not forget the work that those brothers and sisters put in, right? Absolutely. We gotta, because everybody's gonna try to give it to the police and give it to the FBI and all of that. I'm sure that they had a lot to do with it, right? But at the end of the day, it was what was going on the ground in our community, Brother Dashawn.
Well,
and you were out there, Dave.
Actually, Ed, I was actually getting ready to say something similar to what you just said. I said some time ago on Facebook 2 things that we need to start an ebony alert, just like we have an amber alert for whenever Black folk go missing, Black women in particular, because a lot of these sisters are not running away. A lot of these sisters are being snatched up. But what I proposed before that some time ago on Facebook, this was the second thing, which is really the first thing. Anytime one of us goes missing, there needs to be a squad. There needs to be a search and rescue squad that we form. And I'm gonna let you know something right now. Brother Sharif, this past Sunday, and I'm not at all saying that Brother Sharif, I'm not saying this to try to bring all the attention on Brother Sharif, but as we say in the new Black Panther Party on Sunday with that first search mission, Brother Sharif took charge of his post and all Black Nation property in view. Brother Sharif is considerable, and also we have to shout out. There were a lot of the flyers that you see that are in Essex County, East Orange in particular, in North. We have to shout out Sister Natasha Akinyele, okay? The wife of our own Brother Bashir.
That's right.
Akinyele. Why? Because of the fact that as soon as Natasha found out that this sister was missing and Bashir found out, right away they jumped on it. And Natasha had said, Brother Dashawn, send me a picture of her, send me the flyer so I can print it out. And we printed out because initially there were only flyers that were posted, like speckled about. But because of the work of Sister Natasha, of course, and Bashir, printing off flyers, we made sure that East Orange and Newark and Orange were saturated, with this sister's name. Now, Brother Sharif definitely took charge of this. And this is the thing, Brother Sharif wasn't trying to be the leader. It's just that, of course, Brother Zaid, Brother Zaid always quoting, Kwame Ture, Brother Kwame always spoke to us about the importance of organizing, There was no organization this past Sunday. When we showed up, there were people that, we got the call that we were going to look for the sister. So when people showed up, people were like, well, who's the organizer of the event? And so the organizers didn't show up, and it was Brother Sharif that took charge, not out of an ego thing, but he provided organization. He did what in that Panther tradition, that organizer tradition, he provided organization to people that weren't used to an organization, but were still dedicated. He set up he helped set up the structure, the times, the shifts. Okay, the 8 a.m. shift, the 12 p.m. shift, the 5 p.m. shift. That was Brother Sharif.
All Black Nation property is you. That's right. Take charge of posts and all Black Nation property is you.
That's what he did, Brother Zaid. General Order number 1. That's what he did. That's what he did.
See, this is the backstory. See what I mean? See, this is the story that we're not going to hear in the mainstream press, right? So as they began to vilify certain people and not give certain people, right, the credit in terms of how hard they were out there working. See, that's the thing. We got to make sure that our community know what the facts are, right? And that was the facts, because they pushed, right, mainstream media based on the work that they were doing in the street. And
That's
so
right.
we've got to say thank you to Brother Sharif, right, for what he did and how hard he worked. And he should feel proud that this young girl is alive, and the fact that, she now may get the opportunity to get the kind of help that she really needs, right? And she's 14 years old. She still has her entire life ahead of her, right? And so we as a Black community ought to be there for her. We ought to be there to pray for her and to pray for her mother, because obviously we don't know the backstory, right? And the personal story that what was going on in the house. We do know something was going on, but we don't know what it is. But we, on this show, we want to dedicate tonight to Brother Sharif Ahmed Hotep.
Yeah, and I'll second that 1,000-fold, and I will also.
That's right, Black Power.
And I'll also add to that all of the folks who are in the Brick City Peace Collective, and Ali just threw a fist up, right? And Ali's one of our hardest working young men in our local, violence interruption work, right? All of them were out there, right? Sharif took charge of his post, but he wasn't out there by himself. Yep. All of them out there in that same spirit, in that same post, on that same mission, at that same critical moment, creating a critically important environment for that child to be found, right?
That's right.
To Ashan's point, our community does need to look at its own, its own rescue and self-defense capacity. It does raise that issue, right?
Yep.
I mean, what the New Black Panther Party did in South Carolina, right, was exemplary, right, for what we should do. But again, there's still that question that has to be pushed around shifting the paradigm for law enforcement in these kind of circles, because they have resources,
right,
technologically up to date, investigative resources that can really, make a difference with these kind of things beyond the spirited people power that we employ when we take to the streets. And Sharif's case with his daughter is an example of that. Once they lit that town up and the police got up off of their behinds, their technology and whatnot led to that child being found. Unfortunately, the circumstances were different, but that led to that child being found. And we say, I come back to the original point, right? If the resources are manifested and made to or work earlier in these kind of things, more people will be found than not. More lives will be saved than not. So the question of pushing for a paradigm shift and this kind of investigative work is important to still appreciate. All of that.
And Zaid, that's a conversation we should have in the Black community. We should have a conversation around what I think Dashan just said, right? We ought to have some sort of squad that goes into action in every Black community when a young Black person or a Black person is missing, right? Because we've got so many brothers and sisters who are missing, and we should prepare for that now, right? And set up some sort of mechanism by which we organize in the community to go looking for those folks, right? Because I think that to wait for other folks to do it, I mean, I mean, we've seen what Brother Sharif did in South Carolina. We've seen what the local organizations did here in East Orange, and I like that whole idea of creating an ebony squad. I like that idea a lot, man. And I think
Ebony
that's
alert.
something we should start. Yeah,
Yeah, go
I
ahead,
think
Dasha.
that's something we should talk about.
Yeah, and Dashawn, that's something that you should, and Ed,
I
from a
think you.
legal standpoint, you
Yeah,
need to,
I think we should patent that,
what's
brother.
that's what I was about to say, patent that. That is
Yeah,
something
yeah,
serious,
yeah.
and people who know ideas, what's that, intellectual property, how important
That's
that
right.
is. You need
Yeah,
to get right on that. But what I do want to say is that,
that's almost
you know,
like saying Black Lives Matter, right?
right.
When he said an ebony alert. See that resonates with Black people everywhere, right? You can say ebony alert, create an ebony alert, and everybody know exactly what the hell that means, right? When a Black
Code
person
Evan.
go missing, right? We go and I'm saying what we can do is almost and here's the thing. You can almost take that. You know how when there's an emergency, you know your phone beeps, right?
Mhm.
You
The
can
same
almost
way, yeah.
create that,
Mhm.
right? Where when there's an ebony alert, you can actually have that where it actually goes off where Black people will register to a particular service and says, okay, I want to register for the ebony alert. So whenever there's a Black person missing in the country, there's going to be an alert that goes off,
Well, this
and you can
connection
set
is
that up
acting
as
up.
a new
I'll be
technology.
right back. I got a family. I'm
Yeah,
sorry about that. This
yeah,
connection. My
yeah. We heard
connection.
you, Dashawn. We heard
Go,
you.
go on out and come on
Okay,
back in.
we heard
Yeah,
you. Yeah. But what I also want to say is that, as we still in the midst of this pandemic, and we keep touching on the subject, and we kind of touch on it briefly, but we don't delve into it, is mental health, and what are the repercussions of the pandemic and mental health, and
Yeah.
how it's going to wear on our young people, and what are the outcomes going to be. And we just have not begun to start dealing with the mental health portion of this. And I
yep.
know we keep talking about it, and I know this is Keesha, this is her area of expertise.
She's gonna be on in a
But
couple minutes. She just texted me.
yeah, I think that we really need to pay attention to, this whole thing with mental health and what's happening with our young people, and not take it lightly.
It could be a very serious factor. And
Yep.
I'll tell you, I know my 17-year-old is struggling with that actively now. Somehow imagine it to stay in a modest place with her grades, but she is definitely not who she normally is, and had a very difficult time last year when school went virtual and they were locked in to home space. It was just a lot of young folks really got waylaid by that. And if you have any other outstanding issues to
Hmm.
compound a sudden mental health challenge, it can lead to who knows what. So that's very well taken from for me personally and professionally.
Now,
So that is important.
do you remember, Zaid, when the man came on and he said that we don't really know the full effects of what COVID has done to young
No,
people?
that's
Remember he
right.
said that
That's right.
because
That's
they
right.
had to stay in the house for a whole year,
Right.
right?
Right.
And and you don't know what those living situations were in that house, right, and what they were dealing with, right? And so and that could be part of what we're seeing now, right?
It
We're
very well
seeing
could
some of
be. It
those
very
effects
well
because we
could be.
don't know, right?
We just don't
And
know.
remember, we most of us don't live in 2 and 3 story houses. We live in apartments, right?
Right. Right.
And so when
With
something goes
nine,
on,
nine and 10 people in the apartment,
that's right.
we all
So
struggle to survive.
right. So, it's not like, oh, you can run downstairs in the basement while somebody else on the second and third floor, and you could be down there by yourself trying to figure shit out. You know what I mean?
Mm,
No.
mm.
You right there being cussed at and hit up on and things going on right in the same house. So, and so when Mayor Baraka talks about that, he's right. Right.
He's
And
absolutely right.
I think that we ought to make see, that again, Donna, right, is why political power is important, Zaid, right?
That's
Because
right.
there need to be resources made available, right, to help people in those cases, right? Where a concerned government says, what happened to this country with this pandemic was not due to something of your own power. That happened not because of something you did, not because of something you born on, but now there's some sort of mental cost that all of us have to pay for it. You know, I mean, even me. You know, I think about it. You know how in my own life, Brother Zaid, I think about. You know, I thank God. You know that I had Kim, but at the end of the day, you think about people who had to live by themselves,
Right.
right? Who had never been in you know in the house by themselves, where they couldn't come out, couldn't go nowhere, couldn't do nothing, right? Talking to yourself. I mean, I even heard what's that girl, that lady named Gail, who is Oprah Winfrey's friend. You know,
Yeah. The news,
I
she's on
forget her.
channel 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard her say, you know, that because she lived by herself in New York, and and couldn't go outside, she had to shoot her show from her house and do all of that. She said that she had to go and see a psychologist. Now, but think
That's
about people
understandable.
who don't have those resources.
Exactly. And she's got resources, right?
Right, she got
Yeah, yeah.
resources.
And the
Right,
thing is this, it may be years before this is properly even assessed,
right.
because there's so many variables that are gray, that are, they're not that you don't have the normal tangibles to measure and study and analyze. This something is very, from the disease itself making you physically sick, to all of its ramifications on those around those who do get sick. It's a
And
wild
and,
space.
and for some of us who don't even know we sick, how about that? We
Yeah.
don't know.
How
You
about
don't
that?
Right,
know. You
How
you
about
don't know until you know. You know.
right. And the pandemic didn't really do anything but exacerbate that, right? Because
exactly
at
right?
the end of the day, and then think about, again, we talk about resources, right? Think about if there's already not enough food in your house, right? And now you can't work. Now you don't have money coming in, right? You don't have employment. I mean, all of that is coming down on you all at the same time, right? And then if you got multiple kids and you don't have technology by which your kids can go to school and participate in school. I mean, this is could be one of the worst times coming forward for most of our people, and that's why I think that a concerned government, right, would be concerned about that and says, well, you know what, we need to make sure that there are resources available because there could be some sort of pandemic fallout, right, for people
Well, that's
listening.
the next part. That's the
There you
next
go.
part of that bill. The next part of the bill that the president is trying to pass is the social part. There's
Build
the
back better.
infrastructure. Yeah, the Build Back Better, but there's the social part of it, and part that we have to pay attention to. But also going back early days of the pandemic, and we remember to people who are highlighted, whether it's celebrities, and I can think of one was Kelly Clarkson, how she was very public and she ended up having a divorce. And one of the reasons she ended up getting a divorce is because she spent so much time home with her husband. And there were other
Mhm.
public cases. But remember that sometimes our schools and our places of work were our places of refuge. So when people end up staying home all of the time, it revealed a lot,
Mhm.
So.
You know what? It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that, because last year, I would say the summer of last year, August, me and Keesha, who were waiting to join us, actually had a discussion about that, and she was speaking about. Now, unfortunately, for the past several minutes, the broadcast was choppy, so I'm not sure if you mentioned this. But Keesha, being the social worker that she is, she was giving me statistics, and she said that as a result of people being in such close proximity for such long periods of time being closed up, she said that the abuse cases went up, including
Mm,
sexual.
mm,
She said sexual assault
mm,
Absolutely.
among acquaintances actually went up as well.
mm. I
Absolutely.
believe that.
And,
And she
Yeah.
had
and
mentioned
I don't know, one for me, I'm very, very sensitive, and especially in our urban schools, that we pay attention to how our continuity, whether it's our principals, our teachers, how we pay attention to how stable those environments are, because it's horrible when a young person when when a person has to leave an unstable environment to go to another unstable environment. So I often pay attention that, again, I just said it before, that oftentimes our places of employment are schools, but those are our places of refuge sometimes. And when that was all taken away from us because everybody had to, build different norms because of the pandemic, a lot was rebuilt.
Yeah, yeah. Some people just broke down in the process too. And to
Right.
Deshaun's point, I want to recall another time. I think the last time when the black community had a serious discussion about what he talked about was in the app. Can you remember when that was, Deshaun? You were very much around and very much part of what we were doing together during that time. Was the Katrina
Oh,
catastrophe?
definitely 2005. I
Right?
actually went down there with a
Yeah,
delegation of New Black Panther. You know, of course, when I was at the time, I was the national assistant of the New Black Panther Party, and we traveled there several times. In fact, during a period of a year to the Bayou, if you would, Norland, yes, with
yeah. So
efforts bringing food.
and that's been a long time. And just as our community was abandoned and neglected in a genocidal way, and under those rescue circumstances, our women and daughters that tend to face that tendency too. So in the end, government ain't gonna come save us. We should, you know, could deceive ourselves into thinking that government is going to always do the right thing, because more than not, they don't.
That's right.
So we need to be prepared to do that. However, in those spaces and places where we are the government, we should be pushing for the paradigm change,
That's right.
right? Without question and without apology. So I'm saying
That's right.
that locally, we need to do that. We need to look at you know the upgrading of resources that these smaller communities where we're majority, right, have the kind of technical support that they need, for these kinds of things, and to change the paradigm, not to wait 24, 48 hours to do a thorough investigation around somebody being missing. But when someone can establish in a person's family that something is off and someone is genuinely missing, whether it's 1 hour or 10 hours, right? Though those resources should be brought to bear to make the difference that can be instrumental in saving someone's life, right?
That,
So that's so what's in front of us to do on that front should be somewhat clear. And I know Keisha's trying to get on. I hope that we can figure out this tech thing so we can get on, because we're talking around her. We need her up in this conversation.
yeah. But I think what you're saying, Zaid, is so true. I think that when you talk about, there's a place for government, but there's also a place for us, right? And that's why I think that that whole idea concept of an ebony alert. There's a whole bunch of things that can be listed underneath that, right? It's so important because when you think about healthcare for Black people, healthcare for us is going to be a lot different than healthcare or mental health care for white folks, right? Because remember, we still suffering from slavery, right? Remember, there's no post traumatic slave syndrome. Remember that book, Post
That's
Traumatic Slave
right.
Syndrome?
Dr.
We're going to
Georgia
get her
Boy.
on too. Jordan Bree,
Right.
I'm going to reach out to see if we can get her on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
please.
remember, Mayor Baraka said that there's no post for us, right? He said there was never a post for us. We're still suffering on every level from that, right? Not only mental, but we're suffering financially, physically, right? Health wise. I mean, every way you could imagine. And remember, a lot of those
Every index of
institutions,
human behavior. That's right.
right? And most of those institutions, Brother Zaid, are still in effect, right? And
And also think about, we don't believe, oftentimes we're still taught that um, we shouldn't believe in psychiatric care. That
that's
was
right.
something that we shunned in our community and in our
That's right.
household. Remember, we came from the thing that was what goes on in this house stays in this
Stays in this
house.
house. That's
you
right.
know
Yep.
and there was always, if uncle or auntie was a little bit crazy, we just dealt with
Right.
it in a different way. We
Right.
that I always think about the movie, oh good lord, but
You're too
they
young for
but the
senior moments. What's going on?
yeah, but the movie, and it became Soul Food. But think of the
Mm.
movie Soul Food, when the mother had her brother and he had the mental health, and she just kept him upstairs in the room, and the whole thing, it was like, just, she fed him and everything, but Uncle so and so had mental challenges. He just stayed upstairs in the room, you know what I mean? So he wasn't in a facility, he wasn't anywhere. It was just something that we dealt with in a different way.
She's having trouble getting on. I see her trying to get on. Right. Yeah. Well, one of the things that we can be proud of in Newark, and then this would be a perfect segue for her to jump in, right, is that the work that we're doing using and involving social work and involving mental health supports is a part of a paradigm shift within that field. And there was a reason. Let's just be clear about this also. There was a reason why a lot of our folks shunned that kind of support, because years ago, it was rare to find anybody that looked like you to provide that. And also, those same resources have also served as the soft arm of the state in coming into our families and taking our families apart. Of course, the most famous story of that is what happened to Malcolm's family when he was a child, right? But that's so that reluctance is rooted in some place in our history that we need to deal with. But we also, one of the things that I have tried to do now in my senior years now on this front is trying to encourage younger brothers to go into the field. Because one of the things that I'm proud to see is that not only are we seeing strong female and womanist leadership on the ground, on the streets in terms of social justice, right? But we're also seeing a strong wave of conscious women coming into social work, right?
That's
but
right.
It needs
That's
to be balanced with young brothers going in, because folks that are causing all these crazy problems in the community with these issues tend to be young men, young black men who needs black men to help them straighten themselves out. So young brothers out here concerned about the social well-being of our community, especially those of you who are watching this and who have been through the fires that we go through as black men, and you're trying to figure out what you can do to turn your life around and
you know what, Zay? I can remember.
Consider coming into the field and bringing your consciousness into the field.
Now that you talk about that, I can remember there used to be a sister in Newark, hey Keesha, who used to be over the reentry program. And this was prior to Mayor Baraka being mayor, and when Booker was still mayor. And I forgot this sister's name, but she had went
You
into
remember
the
nobody's name tonight.
but she went into the New Jersey prison system. And I want to say the numbers that she gave to why people were locked, the amount of people were locked up, and how many of them were locked up due to mental illness, the numbers were staggering. And this was right before Mayor Baraka got elected. But she had did a study with the New Jersey prison system, but the numbers were staggering about how many people were locked up, and the result, they were impacted by mental illness was the primary, intersection of substance abuse and mental illness.
You're going in and out a little bit, Don. I want you just to be aware of that.
Uncle Keesha, go ahead. So Keesha, this is you, babe. This is your area of expertise. So go ahead, Mama.
Let's give Keesha an introduction, Zahid. So you ain't gotta give him the 50 pages, but she's
give your daughter a proper introduction.
Oh,
that's
right.
God.
Don't y'all start with me with that.
Hey, Keesha, if we gave you a whole bio, we'd end the show, right? Because I ain't talking all night.
It's been a while since she's been with us, and a lot has happened with the work since she's been with us. We wanted to give her an opportunity to come back. Now, we lost some time now, but we wanted to give her an opportunity to come back and talk about just how the implementation of this new Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery has been developing, and what that and how that can help inform us in terms of things we need to do and things that we can now do, right, as a consequence of those things coming to bed. You're muted, Keith. I'm proud to introduce the first director of the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery, Keesha Eure, our own brown sugar. Keisha, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear y'all. Can y'all hear me and see me okay?
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. There you go. There you go.
That's Queen. That's
Okay.
Queen Sugar. Queen Sugar.
So we have been talking, Keesha, about some of the dimensions that are related to the disappearance and the recovery, thankfully, of Jashia Moore, and what that can say to us about why the things that we're trying to do around violence reduction and violence interruption and proper mental health support for our community is so important. And see, she's being surrounded too. You can see she's in the middle of something at the same time. She worked so hard. Could you hear what I said, Keisha?
Sorry, I heard you.
Okay, all right, okay. So, what say you, Madam Director? What say you about what we need and what we need to be doing and what we have in place to help address situations like this?
So I say that we are certainly not at 100%, but I know that we, probably never will be at 100%, but we are in the process of making sure that we, cover some bases. So the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery was built out of the George Floyd climate, right? Of the protests, of the rallying cries around defunding of the police. And so what we did under the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery is to reallocate some funding so that we can address some of the needs of the people. So we know that when people are victims of crime and violence, or either the perpetrators of crime and violence, we know that at the root of it is public health issues, social emotional issues, mental health issues, financial issues. And so we're trying to combat some of those things and fill in the gaps. And so the office ultimately is being built to be able to address some of those issues. Many people want to relocate because they don't feel safe. And we're able to help them do that by having some funding in our budget to be able to do that. So the office is currently being housed out of City Hall, but we are under the umbrella. We have domestic violence, sexual assault, and community violence under one umbrella, which includes the Shani Baraka Center. We have an office of well-being with social workers, where we hire for every 10 social workers, for every 10 police officers, we get one social worker. And so the last class that we hired, we got 100 officers that went into the academy. So I was able to hire 10 social workers. And so they work alongside law enforcement, and they go out on calls sometimes instead of law enforcement, where we're working to be able to handle quality of life issues, panhandling, homelessness, social emotional issues. So we are working, diligently to just try to fill in some of the gaps that we know need to be filled in. So the office is going to be housed at the 17th Avenue precinct, which is groundbreaking and game changing in terms of being able to have a police precinct, the first precinct, where the officers have been moved out, and the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery is going to be housed there.
And then tell us why that venue is important also, because it's historic dimensions we don't want to leave out.
So it's historic, right? Out of the 67 rebellion, right, is where that police department was where it sparked out of. And so a place that was once a place where people were being arrested is now going to be a place where people can get help. So it's historic in the sense that we're doing some restorative justice practices, right? We are changing the culture and shifting the culture of how we are doing policing, if you will. So we have a community-based public safety approach, in which case we haven't had that before. So we're really allowing the community and the public to have a say-so in how we do public safety and working together alongside law enforcement, because we know that public safety is not just law enforcement. And so we're really pushing the issue and changing and shifting the culture of how we do public safety in the city of Newark.
That's now just going a little further than that. How what other organizations are involved in all that network, that growing network that makes up the Office of Trauma Recovery, Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery?
So out of the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery, we have the Brick City Peace Collective, which is managed by Dawn Haynes and Dr. Sharice Balam. And the Brick City Peace Collective is our arm where we are looking for accountability, collaboration, partnership, and coordination of organizations working together and institutions working together. So we have under there, we have, of course, the Newark Police Department is a partner, our University Hospital Violence Intervention Program, we have, that's a partner, Newark Community Street Team, Newark Anti-Violence Coalition, Equal Justice USA, My Brother's Keeper, Newark Community Solutions, Newark Street Academy, that the Israel Hospital is a part of the collective, and so many more. So we are really working together collectively to be able to have a coordinated strategy around how we do violence intervention in the city. So we have 16 different community-based organizations, institutions, and individuals that's a part of this collective. And we will be adding more entities to be able to help us with our intervention strategy.
What role did the Brick City Peace Collective play in the response to the disappearance of this young daughter, if you don't mind sharing that?
So the Brick City Peace Collective certainly was boots on the ground in terms of helping with getting the awareness out and the efforts. So we have Sharifa Menhotep is the community engagement specialist for the Brick City
for
Peace
about
Collective.
a half hour already. Yeah, come on, keep coming.
He talked. He was active on the grounds because he has firsthand experience, in this where his daughter was a victim, and so I'm sure he took this very personal. And so he, was boots on the ground and helping the family and bringing national attention to it, going door to door, store to store, hotel to hotel, abandoned building to abandoned building, looking for her, yelling her name out. And really, really looking diligently for her. And so the Brick City Peace Collective helped to make flyers. Hundreds of dollars was spent on flyers to make sure that the word was out. Facebook, social media. They did they was a part of the press conferences. And so Brick City Peace Collective is your grassroots, right? Your activism wing as well. But they're also supposed to be our clearinghouse to do the collaboration, partnership, and coordinating. But they were very, very instrumental in helping find, to get the information out around finding Josiah Moore.
How did the city of East Orange and the Essex County Office of the Prosecutors respond or appreciate the resources that our community brought to bear in that investigation?
And listening to the press conference today that the prosecutor's office did, they did give acknowledgement and appreciation to all of the entities, to all of the law enforcement entities, but they did really give a good acknowledgement and shout out to the community organizations, and people who really use their platforms to get the word out. And it was a first where I really heard that it was a real I would say compassion, commitment, and a heartfelt appreciation for the community really turning out to help them. So I would say that they did appreciate the help, even though they got some backlash, right? So there was some backlash around how law enforcement handled the case, and how we have this continued issue around how Amber Alerts don't go out, or they just feel like the person ran away, and so they don't pay it as much. The seriousness of it is not taken when it's our Black and brown girls, right? And so we know that that has happened, and it do happen. But I know in this case, everybody pulled together to really bring home Josiah Moore and to get the word out for her to come home safely.
Yeah, we were in East Orange, and I want East Orange listeners to hear what I'm saying in this question. We were in East Orange a couple of years ago and then I'm having a senior moment. We had a teacher that was killed in the senseless act of gun violence out there, and in the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition, and some of us went out there to help with that. And we were talking about trying to help East Orange build their own East Orange Anti-Violence Coalition. Those kind of conversations need to resume again. We need to identify bodies and resources to help that come together, right? Dashawn, do you want to share your idea that you laid out early in the day, and put some questions to Keesha? Did we lose him? Is Dashawn still on?
I'm not sure if he's still with us,
I think we lost Dashawn.
but
But go ahead,
I'll
Ed.
share
Yes, I'm
that.
sorry.
Yeah, so Keisha, one of the things that Dashawn brought up, and I think was a terrific and tremendous idea, he said that we ought to create something of our own called an ebony alert, like they call it the Amber Alert. Like create an ebony alert, right? That and you could think broad about this in terms of how everybody have a phone, and that when there's a there's some sort of snow emergency, or some sort of major weather event, how your phone goes on, right? Like black folk could register for that service, right? Where we could say through black media, social black media, that because we know what the real problems are in our community, and we know that police officers and FBI and CIA folk don't readily go looking for our lost daughters and children and so forth. So because in a way we know that because there's anecdotal evidence that says that so many of our people are missing and unfound. And so I think that is an incredible idea that can be put forth locally and nationally, right? And then he talked about sort of what Brother Sharif did with that whole concept of putting people in shifts to find this system where he had 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock or 12 o'clock, right? I mean, that's a brilliant idea, right? When so you're not wearing people out, right? But people commit to a
It's how you
particular
deploy your
time.
forces. How you deploy troops.
Yeah. And all of that was just brilliantly done. So imagine putting that whole thing together and then say wherever black folk are, we're going to take that responsibility ourselves of being able to do that. But here's the other piece to that, right? Being able to get on the front end of that, because one of the things we were talking about, Keith, before you came on, that Mayor Baraka talked about in one of his shows when he was on. He was saying that we didn't know we didn't know we wouldn't know right off the hand or right off the bat what the real effects of COVID was going to be on black folks, because most of us don't live in houses. We live in apartments. And as Zaid said, there are a number of our family members living in that apartment with us, right? And then you have family members in there who got mental issues. So imagine if you in there and you can't go outside because of this pandemic and you can't go to school. Well, you've already got a number of the social issues and mental issues that are going on in the house. But then what if you also got, some sort of food shortage in the house, right? You've got some sort of economic shortage in the house. You got all of these different issues in. So we need to be able to get in on the front end of that, as well as being able to get in on this other end of that with a ebony alert and so forth. So, that's why I was saying that one of the things that the mayor talked about when he talked about Dr. Guru's book, when he said that, when she mentioned in post-traumatic slave syndrome, the mayor said there's no post for us. We still suffering from slavery. So all of those issues are still with us. But if you think about what was happening to this young sister and what was going on out, we don't know. We really don't know, right? But we know there was something going on in this young 14-year-old girl's life for her just to leave her family and then somehow are able to survive for a whole month out there by herself, right? And we know what can happen to somebody out there by themselves, especially a young female. And she was able to survive by God's grace. But what I'm saying is, Keisha, is that we need to find a way to get in on the front of that. And we were saying we know that in our community, going to see a psychologist or going to see someone who can help you mentally, that's not sexy, but we all need it.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. And I always push in every conversation we have, we're pushing, right? Mental health, emotional health, social health, talk to someone, call someone, utilize your health benefits. Make they have, things that's not even as formal, right? They have just a conversation, support workshops. venting sessions. But yeah, we certainly have to utilize our resources and get help for our young people. So we have our youth and our young people beyond, just with Josiah Moore, but our young people who are still in cars, who are robbing people, who are killing people, who are committing acts of violence, crime, all of these things, fights. There's so many fights happening in the schools right now. They need so much help with the fights that are happening every day in the schools, fights that happen on the buses, right? So there's something happening beyond, just the regular stress and being overwhelmed and depression and those sorts of things, the everyday hustle and bustle of life that people are just so overwhelmed with. But COVID, like you said, did create something that we just can't measure, that we just don't know what it has created. And so we certainly need to start to ask the questions that we never probably asked before. And we might have to just be a bit more direct around asking questions around people's social, emotional, quality of life needs, right? In the school system. So my social workers went into Barringer and they allowed us to come in on all 5 of the lunch periods that they have. And we asked questions around safety. Do you feel safe? Do you feel like, the way that you come to school and go to school is safe? Or do you have any resources that you need? Do your family need additional help and support? And we was asking the questions, and the youth and the kids were so excited that we came in on the lunch periods. We have some footage on it. And they were talking to us and they were excited. They were taking pictures and they were honest around what's happening with them in their day-to-day life, and what's happening at home. So we need to get into the schools. It can't be the staff that works there because they're not going to necessarily talk to them as much, but we have to, be able to utilize resources, additional resources, and bring in people who are relatable, that's able to get the information that we need to be able to help them and do the follow-up. The follow-up is important. If we know our kids are not coming to school, they're not enrolled in school, right? We need to be going and knock on doors to see, well, what's going on? Why are they not enrolled in school? Why didn't they come back to school? And some of the parents opted to keep their children home due to COVID, but we still need to do those wellness checks beyond them just opting to keep their kids home. And so I think that, again, we're talking about this holistic community effort that we need, but we don't have enough people to do it. Not enough people that care. There are not enough people who are compassionate and passionate about this work that's going to do the real boots on the grounds work. And this boots on the grounds work is a personal work. But it is necessary for us to be able to get to the root causes of why our children are stressed, depressed, overwhelmed, failing, not engaged, not motivated, not inspired. So, there's such a huge need. And I think that we just have to figure out what it is that we need to be able to combat. But so my office is doing what it can do, but my office is a clearinghouse, right? So my office is a clearinghouse to be able to disperse funding and support to people who can do the work, because everybody don't have the funding and don't have the capacity and infrastructure to do it, but they are. And so the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery is putting out additional funding, putting out additional, opportunities for people to be able to apply so that we can, do the work on a greater level than we've been able to do it.
But that's also the thing too, right? That, our people aren't necessarily applying, right? To do that. And I think that's what's necessary. I think a lot of, and when you talk about an increase, in fights and all of that going on in schools, you're right. There's something going on. And I think that, we've got to get at the root of it. And then even more so, Keesha, I know already know this, that is elevated during the holiday season, right? November, December, and January. It even becomes more heightened because, you got young people who, want things, and unfortunately they don't have the resources to get it. So how do they do that, right? They go and they want to take it from someone else, or they go and they want to commit a crime in order to do that. And we've got to find a way to be able to get in the middle of that, right? To be able to save them before they go down that road. And I think a lot of it has to be what y'all did by going to Barringer, right? And meeting those kids where they are, right? And we've got to have, I think we've got to have real people having real conversation with them, right? Like, because I think about what Lauren and the mayor was doing at Central when they had community schools, and it was really about finding out where those kids were, right?
Right.
Like I remember Lauren telling me one time, Zaid,
We talking about Lauren Wells?
Yeah, Lauren Wells, right? I remember she telling me one time that the mayor, had a student that was in the community school thing that they were doing, and she said that everybody would say that this guy, he was the worst student in the class and so forth, and so the mayor, had a conversation with him, and said, "Yo, man, let's just be guys, let's talk." And he said that what he found out, Keesha, get this. He said, the mayor said what he found out was the reason the kid was failing wasn't necessarily because the kid couldn't do the work. He said the kid was failing, Zaid, because the kid couldn't see the damn board.
Mm.
And he said
that's a real thing.
Right.
Yeah.
He said he found out the kid needed glasses.
And the other stories, like, I mean, the mayor has his own bevy of stories that he tells like that. That wasn't the only one.
And so you think about it, and that's real talk, right? And so the mayor said, I went out the boy some glasses. And then he said, hey man, he said he got the boy some glasses, and he said he saw his grades improve. He said the boy was doing the work. He said up until then he was acting out, right? And he said he was acting out. He was acting. He wasn't that he couldn't do the work. It was that he couldn't see the board. But he didn't know how to go ask the mayor to say, hey man, I need some glasses, man. I need to have my eyes checked, right? He had an issue. And then, Lauren told me a story about somebody who, wasn't smelling good, right? And she said that they couldn't afford to wash their clothes, right? They couldn't afford to take a bath every day. They had real issues at home. And so that's what I mean.
Issues.
That's right. Yeah. Right. And that exists in our community. And that's why I'm saying, Keesha, those are some of the things I think that we've got to address as people, because a lot of that stuff has been paraded on us, right? You got to remember there was a parade of horrors on Black people that came through slavery. That's right. It came through the Middle Passage. Absolutely. It came through everything that we've come through. A parade of
unspeakable stuff in a colossal way. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so you look at all of that, and then now you look at these young kids like you talk about today. These young kids got a lot of pride, right? And if they see other kids wearing the latest Jordans, right, or the latest outfit or whatever, them kids want it too, but they can't afford it. So how do they get it, right? They got to go and commit a crime. But we've got to create avenues for them by which, right, they don't see that stuff as a life or death issue for them, right? We've got to be able to create that. And the only way we can do that, Zaid, is that, and Keesha, did we lose him? I think that the way we do it, Brother Zaid, is that we've got to get ahead of it, man. You know what I mean?
Sure. And we tend to be the last ones to catch up, with these kind of things and to get on. I understand she's adjusting her connection. She'll be back on in a moment. And I was just getting ready to ask her a question too. I really wanted to get how that played out in terms of the reaction that she got with gender. Let me just ask you, get down. I know you were trying to fix your connection, Keith. But let me ask you this, because I'm always trying to sound the drum, trying to get brothers to come into the field to give all these sisters some balance help and whatnot, trying to do this work with that specialized training and with those credentials. How, if you had to measure by gender, right, the enthusiasm or the enthusiastic response that you got when you went to the school, how would you measure that?
From the top to the bottom, I would say that they were enthusiastic because the principal allowed us to come in. The mayor was there. Some of our outreach workers were there. Our social workers was there. And for them to see us come in, I think that they were very excited. And then we came for a whole week straight after that. And then the next week straight after that. And they were excited to have someone to talk to. So with that, many of the male students, right, we talking around gender, we brought in males because most of the outreach workers, and we brought in some of the big homies, right? We brought in some of our folks that got some credibility in the streets, our credible messengers. And we brought them in, and the male students were very receptive to them. And to see our female social workers, the female staff was receptive to. So the energy, there was such a shift in energy, and we went every day. And on the lunch periods, because I don't know what's happening on the lunch periods, but they were a receptive. We were there after school, safe passage kind of a setup, right? Where we're outside, you know, after school, before school starts. So I think that they need to see that. And then we're assessing while we're there to see if there's going to be some retaliation, some fights, and different things. So the schools are overwhelmed. They only have one social worker most times, right? So I have 2 social workers in the youth house doing the youth processing and helping with the youth who are law involved. And then I have 2 at the precinct, at the 480 precinct for people who are getting arrested. They get to get an intake and some resources if they need it. University High School has a Shani Baraka satellite, right? And so I have social workers over there. We're about to put outreach team at Westside High School. Shabazz has some support. Weekway has some support from No Community Street Team. So we're working to try to, you know, cover some bases so that they have additional support. So I believe that the additional support staff is needed. Non-traditional support staff is needed for the schools.
Now, what now for layman's terms, right? Talking about our grassroots folks. When we say non-traditional support staff, make it plain. What we talking about?
We're talking about people who are formerly incarcerated. We're talking about people who are from the communities. We're talking about, you know, maybe our street organizations. We don't call them gang members, right? Our street organizations, right? We're talking about people who are organizers. We're talking about people who would not normally be able to be allowed into the school system, but they're your most effective people. They're people who they see in the neighborhoods. We have our Ali workflows, right? Who's everywhere in the community. And he grabs these guys and he get them jobs and he helped them get in school and we help them get an ID, a social security card, whatever it is that they need. We help to relocate them. We help to do, you know, just whatever it is that they can't figure out for themselves. Over the summer, we did a Safe Summer Academy, hired 120 young people and adults.
Yeah,
and we paid them 120.
120. Go ahead. How did that work?
120 young people and adults. And we had 4 sites, and that went from the age of 14 all the way up. And we paid them to earn to learn, life skills, entrepreneurship, employment skills, knowledge of self, 40 hours a week, $15 an hour. And some of them started their own businesses. And so what we found is that if we keep them occupied and they're learning, then the success is that they didn't get shot, they didn't get killed, they didn't get incarcerated, and they didn't perpetrate violence for the 40 hours a week that we had them. And so we continued that into Saturday Academy. So we have a Saturday Academy happening now every Saturday at the Trek. And it's the same program. They're learning life skills, entrepreneurship, employment skills, knowledge of self. And we're helping them to be able to better themselves. And so this is ultimately what helped save my life, right? The fact that I went to school all year round, learning was what helped get me out, right, of harm's way. And so I'm doing what helped me and giving it to some of our young people to give them an opportunity. And it's the Upward Bound pre-college, you know, kind of a model. But it's for those people who would never get the opportunity to go to pre-college and Upward Bound, who don't have the good grades, who've been incarcerated, who's perpetrating violence, whatever it is. And so ultimately, these are opportunities that we're creating for our young people in the community. And so that's what they need. They need alternatives to violence. They need alternatives to fighting, alternatives to stolen cars. What is the alternative? And we have to give them something. And if you're asking them to stop something, you have to substitute it with something else. And what are we willing to substitute it with?
Go ahead, Brad.
I think Zaid, what Keisha just said was important, right? When she said that the fact that what helped her is that she went to school all year round, right? What helped me, Zaid, and because when I was 17, I was struggling too, right? But I gotta say, what helped me, Keisha, was boxing, right?
Right.
If they did not have that Highly Edmond boxing gym on 8th Street in Newark, right,
Mm-hmm.
in the West Ward, I really
Yep.
don't know where I would be. I mean, I'm just being honest, right?
That
Because
was
I
Mm-hmm.
was,
part of mine. That was part of mine too.
just like everybody else, Keisha, I was
Yeah.
busy trying to follow everybody else in the street. You know what I mean? I wanted to be cool like them. But boxing, what that did for me was it gave me a way out, right? And it made me cool, right? So I could, I couldn't hang out because I had to get up and, and do my
Do that
road
road
work
work.
before I went to
That's right.
class, right? And then after class, Keisha, I had to go to the gym, right? And you wanted to be good because you didn't want to get your behind kicked in the gym. You know what I mean? And that gave me an out, but that gave me somewhere to be every day, something to do every day, right? And I think that we've got to find out what it is that those young people need, and we ought to be there as the adults, right? We ought to be there as brothers and sisters who survived those struggling teenage years. And then remember the other thing, y'all. Remember, they got a lot more resources than we have, right?
Absolutely.
They got a lot more stuff that they got to deal with. They walk around with a computer in their hand every day. We didn't have that,
No, we didn't have anything close to that.
right? We didn't have that. If we wanted to find something, we had to literally go to the library and look it up, right? They got a telephone, right? That they can anything they want to know, they can Google it and find out what it is. We didn't have that. We didn't have that, right?
And they can communicate with people across continents.
That's right,
Their damn cell phones and whatnot. From
right,
everything from how they shaking their behind and wearing their clothes
right.
to who's doing who and all of that.
They have access to a
Yeah,
lot more information.
They
absolutely,
do.
absolutely.
and
And,
and and
and,
they'll
and
take advantage of it if we create the opportunities. And
right,
so I did 120 young people. I finished with 87. But we had them doing everything from lemonade stand contests, right? Teaching them how to run their own businesses. We ordered whatever it is that they wanted from off of Alibaba, whatever the products is they wanted to sell. And they had to present their business plan, and we judged their business plan, and then we funded their business plan, right? And so we took them on trips, right? We went to Dorney Park and the Black Wax Museum, and we exposed them to culture. And so we have to do all of those things. Everything is necessary. School
mhm,
may not be for everyone, but it is for everyone. Depends on what it is that we're presenting.
That's right.
And we allowed them, and we worked with our partners, right? So Newark Community Street Team taught some classes. Newark Anti-Violence Coalition taught some classes. We brought in Hassan Kirby and Shambe the trainer, health and wellness. Every day they had health and wellness. They had to work out. They learned how to open bank accounts. We took them to the bank, taught them how to get credit cards, all sorts of things, right? So it has to be holistic. Everybody didn't do everything, but we offered everything, and the option was there for them.
mhm.
Now you mentioned that this is you actually have a Saturday program now. How do you do intake for that program if somebody wanted to be a part of it or bring somebody to you?
So we've been doing the enrollment at City Hall in room B1 out of the Office of Violence Prevention. They fill out an application um, and the intake. But the program is at the Trek Center every Saturday from 9:30 a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. At the Trek. And if they just show up, we'll certainly make sure we get them enrolled in the program. At the end, it's a 7-week from now to the end of December to December the 18th. They'll get a stipend at the end, $1,000 stipend for participating. And it's every week, every Saturday from 9:30 a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. But if they need more information, they can call my office at 973-733-5655. Again, the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery phone number is 973-733-5655. But they can show up at the Trek, which is located at 55 Ludlow in the city of Newark on Saturdays from 9:30 to 2 p.m.
Hey, Keesha, I had a question for you, and you know, and I'm just saying this based around what we've just been through, with the young sister in Eastern. Do you see
Bad
that
connection.
young girls are uh, more in trouble with dealing with social issues than young black men? Because there was a study that recently was just released where they said that um, that Facebook had on purpose through Instagram targeted young women, right?
Mm.
With based on how they looked and how they felt about themselves, and that a lot of these young girls were suffering from mental issues because they were being targeted by a multi-billion-dollar organization. So I guess the question I got: do you find that young girls are suffering more so than young boys around mental issues and trying to cope?
Well, I don't have any statistics around that. Um, I would certainly say it's about equal, right? Most of the men don't report, don't come forward. You don't hear their stories.
Right.
And so I think that it's more of a under reporting than if it's more so than anything. Young women and girls are taught to express themselves. They're taught to talk. We have women's workshops. We have go out
Mm,
Fridays with our girls.
mm,
We talk on the phone. We're apt to participate in workshops. So we're a bit more inclined to be
mm,
expressive and forthcoming and around a lot of our issues around social, emotional, mental health issues, relationship issues, sexual assault issues, um, school issues, needs for with children. Many of them, the young girls are, getting pregnant at early ages. And so they'll go get help, or help is there through the welfare systems or whatever the systems are. So the systems are more set up for women, I'll say that, than they are for men. But most of our men don't come forward. They don't report. They're not as expressive. But I wouldn't say that it's more or less. I just say that they don't come forward as much as women do. And
mm,
the system is not set up as much as it is for women, as it is, for men. It's not set up for them to be as open, expressive around their mental health issues. And because women are emotional, right? That's how we classify it. Then you'll see the emotion a lot more than you'll see it, from men. And when you do see it in men, you'll probably see it more as like anger and more
mm.
volatile.
You know,
But
no, go ahead.
but that's my answer. But I don't have statistics around the data for any numbers.
Let
You
me ask
know,
you this. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Ed. Go ahead, because
no, I just wanted
you're ready
to
to come on.
add, just want to say welcome, Rukia. We see you, peace, queen. You know, um, but one of the things that I see the mayor struggling with, right? When we go to our men's meetings, because on one front he's trying to save the fathers, then on the other front, he's trying to save them young boys too. You know what I mean? Because I when we had our last men's meeting, not only did he do the men's meeting on that Thursday, that Friday, he went to Weekway, and he goes to talk to the young boys. So not only is the young brothers in trouble, it seemed like the fathers are in trouble as well.
I wouldn't doubt that. I would say the fathers, because it's generational, right? And so recovery, right? And trauma is generational. And so when it's resolved, then it just keeps going. And so I would say our young men are, have their trauma. And if it's unresolved, then the father, the grandfather, the great grandfather, right? Depends on, some ages. But I would certainly say that is there, is relevant. It is certainly prevalent, and that we need to find safe spaces for our men to be able to help them, right? Dawn is saying there, right? Our fathers don't have systems in place for them. They can't go to the shelters. There's
Mm,
very limited men's shelters. There's
mm,
very limited resources for men, but we know that this has been for the last 40, 50 years that the systems have not been set up to support men. And we have a ton of them that's coming home from mass incarceration,
mm,
that's coming
mm,
home from being incarcerated for years, and they cannot get the support that they need. And so you end up with a cycle of violence, a cycle of recidivism. And so we have to create more systems, more support for single fathers and men who have been victims of violence and crime, who are also the perpetrators of violence and crime, but ultimately people who suffer from mental and emotional issues that's unresolved. Trauma, grief, loss are at the forefront of all of these issues.
Let's take you out on a positive note, though, right?
Okay, take me out.
And there's that we just learned, it was just announced this afternoon that the mayor is committing another $19 million to the violence reduction initiatives that we got going on in the town. So when you come back, we want to talk about, and certainly the mayor will be back probably before you are, because he's with us.
He's on next week.
Yeah, he's right. Yeah, he's on with us once a month, every other Friday or so. He'll definitely have something to say about that. But we want to talk about how the continued building out of these resources that we need to put them in place, and how to make them as visible as and accessible as they need be. Right. I know you put in a lot of work. I'm terribly proud of you. You know that. You know I got your back. Right. And I want to thank you for taking time from your increasingly busy schedule to be with us tonight. So
and Brother Zayed, give her an opportunity to introduce herself to one of our strongest.
They haven't met.
Freedom fighter. I don't think she ever met Rukia. You know what I mean?
Oh man, we got
freedom fighter to freedom fighter. I don't think they ever met. So we're gonna say
we gotta fix
Keesha,
that.
Well, go ahead, Zayed, fix it.
So let me say this before you take me out and fix it and introduce me. So I do have $1 million coming out of the door for community-based organizations, institutions, and individuals to be able to apply for. The mayor announced an additional 19 million on top of that. So that puts us at about 20 million out the door. There's several cities that are committing, to violence reduction work. And putting money and investing in this work, because we know it takes resources, and many of us have been doing this work for free for many years. But it takes resources. The government, right, Biden is supposed to be putting out a $5 billion investment. Governor Murphy is putting out a $10 million investment. And so cities have to invest in themselves, right, as well. So we certainly thank Mayor Baraka for investing in this work, for seeing the benefit and the importance of investing in this work so that other cities can follow suit, but ultimately so that we can put our money where our mouth is. And so that's the way that you do this work. So you can say what you want all day long, but what are you willing to invest? And so we're pushing him to invest more and more and more, because we know that it's necessary.
And so we need the rest of our electeds to get involved in that, as those resources are coming from other places, and make sure that we're getting our fair share. And that's one of the things that we've been working on quietly on the side too.
Right.
I want
and so that it comes down, because we don't want it to just trickle down to our grassroots, because then we'll get the least amount.
Our fair share.
Right. We want to flow. It has to flow down. The institutions, the hospitals, and all these other folks can't get the bulk of the money. It has to be some equity in how the money gets dispersed.
That's right. Now,
I think you're talking Rukia's talk, but go ahead.
Okay.
Well, here's a basic connection, right? We're here in the town of Mayor Ras Baraka, son of struggle. This is the daughter of her father is a legend in struggle, the great Chokwe Lumumba. Her brother is now Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba, right? And Rukia got her hands on some of everything, just like you do up here, right? And she's given us this People's Advocacy Institute. Just a couple of weeks ago, where were you, Rukia? You were testifying in an international tribunal on human rights violations in the United States against Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, and talking about everything from police brutality, lack of resources, to environmental injustice. Got our hands in everything, right? So, Keesha, you got some company, baby. You ain't the only one out here killing it.
Absolutely.
Y'all absolutely have to know each other, because y'all doing so much of the same thing, and as we get ready for that 50th anniversary of the Gary Convention in '72 in March. We definitely going to be bringing it closer together. Anyway, so Rukia, this is my daughter Keesha, right? Y'all get y'all Queen Sugar thing on and rock this house, all right?
Yes, I definitely want to be in touch with you. We want to see an Office of Violence Prevention here in Jackson, and
Okay.
So I need to talk to you. We want to make
absolutely.
it.
So we will connect. We'll connect on the convention piece. I'll help with the organizing, and we'll connect on getting Office of Violence Prevention out in Jackson where you are. So we will connect behind the scenes. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you for your work.
All right.
Good session, y'all. Good session. Keith, before you go.
Yes.
It's been a minute since you've been here. Got to ask you the question: who you rocking right now on your earphones?
That don't change. The question is who is my artist, right? That I certainly love.
Yeah.
That don't change. Tupac is gonna always be the answer.
That's right.
Right.
Well, listen, y'all should check out
the Black Panther Party.
Definitely,
right.
Y'all should check out too. Aisha Obafemi's
book. I reached out to Aisha to come on the show.
Okay, I'll make sure she get on the show. Like her book, Light on a Hill. It's about
her father is huge to me. Right, we talk about daddies. Her father, Ahmed Obafemi. That's one of my teachers for real.
Yeah, and so she talks about, it's a memoir about Pac and growing up and all of their relationship. And he was like a brother, like to her,
right?
Our movement, and so
good stuff.
Yeah, Light on a Hill. Really.
I saw it. I'll definitely get it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
In fact, we need to talk about bringing up behind up here. That's what we need to be talking about, right? Yeah, for real. Yeah, we can do that.
She'll be happy to be on the show. She probably just ain't seen it yet, I'm sure.
All right, y'all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
I'll be listening in.
All right, Keith. All right, love you, baby.
Love you more. Good night.
Okay.
So, Rukia, I guess Zaid, already started. Let's talk about what you was testifying on. What was all that about?
Yeah. So, before I get into that, I'm heading out today. I want to say this because I'm sure y'all have already talked about his passing, but Robert P. Moses, known as Bob Moses, passed away a while ago now, and we just had a memorial for him here. He passed away this year, a little bit earlier this summer. We just had a memorial for him here in Jackson.
Now hold on for a second, Rukia. I want you to tell folks who Bob Moses was for the this is grassroots audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bob is a legend to those of us who've been in the trenches, but for those of us who've not been in the trenches, just tell us who that great freedom fighter was.
Yeah, man, he was a genius. Yeah, absolutely. So Bob Moses is who we consider one of the veterans of the civil rights movement. He was one of those folks who helped to start many of what we know as, the big coalitions that helped to bring forth voting rights in the South and different places like that. He spent a lot of his time in Mississippi. He came here as a young person during Freedom Summer, as a young adult organizing, and from Boston, and ended up, Mississippi touched him so much, he ended up coming back, right? But how everybody knows Bob Moses the most. So they call him the silent giant, because he would just be in a room quiet and just making big moves, big change, right? Behind a lot of strategy around the civil rights movement. But people know him because children today study algebra in middle school because Bob Moses started the Algebra Project in Mississippi to teach our children with this idea that if our children learn and know how to navigate academia, learn how to use numbers to their benefit, then they will be able to use that skill to strategically maneuver in the world as it relates to our equality. So he connected those two things. And so prior to him, algebra would only be taught in high school. Because of him, throughout the nation, children, and this is a big thing, y'all. I know it don't sound like a big thing, but this is actually a really big thing. He changed the whole mathematic education system on the public school level. And so children now, you know, my son, he just finished taking algebra in 8th grade, and where most children are able to start taking it in 9th grade, right? And so he's already entering school, having already done algebra, you know, so it's a pretty big thing, the algebra project. So anyway, we had a memorial for him. Many of his students came out, beautiful, beautiful setting. His family came out, hoping to head to dinner with this family in a few minutes to just really break bread with them and show love. But just, you know, a silent giant for real. Really, I am not doing justice right now to his legacy and the work that he has done. The Algebra Project, when we talk about being self-determined, when we talk about educating ourselves, when we talk about creating a pathway for us to not just be lawyers, not just be doctors, but actually be the scientists, to actually develop the cures, to actually create the technology, to actually do all the things we need to live liberated lives, Robert Bob Moses' vision is a big part of that.
Algebra whooped my behind when I was in high school. Yeah. I was one of those young colonized Negroes who told that I couldn't learn math, right? And I went like a fool, believed it, and tried to dance around it, and I don't dance that well either, right? But when I looked at Bob's story, and we have a couple of math teaching legends that are important to this area too, and we didn't look at doing a show on Bob. I mean, that's something that would really be, you know, from the Algebra Project to his organizing, because a lot of folks on his organizing tip, the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, right, was a brainchild of the organizing work that SNCC did. And of course, we have our heroines that came out of the Mississippi Freedom Party, the most famous, of course, being Fannie Lou Hamer, right? Bob Moses was an organizing architect around all of that. Right? Yeah, I mean, yes, and those are just two things, right? And he did a whole lot more than those two things, but those are two important things that stand out and continue to and will always stand out about his legacy. So I'm glad you shared him, and we need to talk about, you know, doing a fully informed segment on him real soon. Great brother, great warrior.
And you know, he made it a family affair. So like his children also did this work, you know. So when you would be here, for example, and I mean, he started the Algebra Project here, and then they went national, so they have algebra projects in other places. But his children, I mean, he moved him and his children here to continue to do that work. And so, you know, when
I didn't realize he was from Boston, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's originally from Boston, but that's where, you know, his children were born.
He migrated from. Yeah.
Right. So him and Janet, his amazing wife, who is still with us today, still, you know, pushing forward and doing all the great work that it takes to have a family that can be committed to this work. You know, his children were a significant part of that, coming home after college and coming to Mississippi and working and being teachers and guiders and fundraisers for this project. And so, I mean, just really, really, you know, like the saying, community, we used to say that, or this value that we got to treat the community as family and the family as the community. And that every day we need to work to make that concept live. And Bob Moses and his family actually did that. I mean, you would go to his house and students would just be in his house, right, after school. You know, it was like a family affair. You would just be there, and they were constantly engaging, not just in the classroom, but also at home, right? Their home was everybody's home. So it's been really a beautiful thing to see all of the students that he taught, because I didn't have the pleasure of having the Algebra Project. It came a little after me, but also I probably wouldn't have even been able to get into that, you know. So Robert Bob Moses, really impactful.
Yeah, beautiful. Black education. Good stuff. Well, listen, let's change gears a little bit, because we haven't had a chance to talk to you since these crazy elections took place. What say you about these elections in recent weeks, locally, nationally? What's your take on how things have gone down in the election?
Well, you know, I will say here, I'm proud of us because we elected the judge that we wanted to see elected, Carlin
Well,
Hicks.
congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very happy about that. She's been doing amazing work, doing work that's actually about violence prevention and not just locking up our children, because we know that locking up the problem, you can't arrest away the problem, right? You can't arrest away the problem of homelessness, of stress, of mental health illness. You can't arrest away the problem of economic instability. You can't arrest away the problem of oppression. And so, she is definitely the right one. I think across the nation, we just got to realize, right, that we are not at a time where we can sit back and relax and say we've elected some great people, we have some great policies. We are at a critical time. We are in that in-between time, right, where we have to work even harder to figure out what our strategy is over the next 4 and 5 years.
And then the whole up now you could, because you get into the good stuff now. You get into the heart of it. That critical time. What we talking about?
Yeah.
Why is this time so edgy for all young heads who don't want to be involved in the process and the politics and in the work and in the organizing?
Yeah, and I would say, I don't know if it's that they don't want to be involved in it, but they just don't have faith in it, right? Because it takes faith. It takes seeing something work. It takes, the opportunity to actually be a part of something and then see the win last, right? And we haven't experienced that, in our young people definitely, and our folks who we consider unengaged in the political process definitely haven't felt that too much, right? Let's just be real. Y'all are doing something amazing in Newark, right? Right. It's been 3 terms now? Is this the third term, second term?
Third term coming.
Third term coming. So y'all only been doing it for 8 years, right? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, where people can actually see political power that is working towards their benefit. We've been doing it for even less over here. We going into the second term, right? Where we actually have the political power to show people what government is supposed to be, right? And so, this is critical because the attacks against us are more blatant. The attacks against us are ones that we cannot turn a blind eye. The attacks against our people are ones that are so bold, right? That if we were to literally turn the other cheek for even a second, we might find ourselves back during Jim Crow, right? We're not too far from it now, right?
That's the truth.
But we'll be a lot closer to it. And so, I think that it's a critical time, not only because the threat is very present and real, and the harm is only increasing and is more visible because of shows like yours, because of, social media and things like that. But it's a critical time because of all of that. We have more capacity right now to organize, right now to mobilize people and then organize them and to educate people, that we can actually begin to see some change happening on a hyper-local level in our cities. And then that change will begin to trickle state up and all the way up to the federal government. So it's a critical time because it's critical. It is the right times, the right people in the right place. We have to move. We cannot in any way just sit back and relax.
There's no time to sit this one out. I'm telling you.
No time to sit it out. The National Black Political Convention 2022 is coming at a perfect opportunity. Perfect time.
Go ahead, Rukia.
So, it's coming at a time where all of our efforts across the nation, we will be able to come together, talk about it, and strategize about what can we agree on to move forward in 2022 and beyond, as we work towards the next mayoral elections that are coming up, the next state elections that are coming up, the next presidential elections that'll be coming up after that. So we ready. We got to get ready. My people, we got to stay ready. It's a song.
Right.
It's a song.
That's right. And therein lies, I think, what you're talking about, Rukia, because as we talked about the attacks on Marilyn Mosby now, right? Mm-hmm. When she tried to go in a whole nother direction, like you were saying, she said, how about we not lock these young men up? How about we find a way to help them by taking a look at, is there some sort of employment or training opportunities that we can get them instead of locking them up. How about if we find an opportunity that says, well, I can lock you up, but how about if you make a commitment to me to go through this training, and then if you pass this training, we get you a job, you committed to that, and how about that? And the white folks that are in power in Baltimore didn't like that. And so they began to go after her personally and after her husband because she made a conscious decision not to lock them up. And Rukia, I told you before, I went to law school just for that reason, right? Because I believe that, and Zaid, you know this, right? I mean, when I heard that they wouldn't let Malcolm go to law school because his 8th grade teacher told him that because, he was young and black, and so therefore he couldn't be a lawyer, right? And so for me,
you just hit a note there, brother.
Yeah, and so one of the reasons I wanted to be a public defender is that I wanted to help brothers and sisters who couldn't afford lawyers. But I didn't want to be that average public defender, the average PD, right? I went in like I was a high-paid defense attorney, and I gave all them young brothers and sisters everything I had, right? And there's nobody, Rukia, that I represented that wouldn't tell you that. They say, who, Ed or Mr. Riley? Yo, let me tell you something, man. I mean, he fought on every level.
That's right.
Right. And that's why I think that when we talk about, our community right now, we're in trouble. But we're not in trouble to the point where we can't save ourselves if we organize.
That's right.
That's right.
Yes.
Because I think Kwame Ture said it, right? He said the way out of this thing is to organize.
That's right.
Right?
And the anniversary of his passing is coming up, the 15th anniversary of his passing.
And Zaid, that's why she's on it when she says that the 50th anniversary of the National Black Political Convention could be our period on
launch. It's
finally
another
doing
launch.
Something right. To finally
a critical
do
relaunch for us. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. In order for us to reorganize and get that re-energy that we need in order to turn ourselves around. Right.
Now to build on that note,
we got to be committed to doing it.
That's right.
To build on what you just said and to bring Conrad on, we kind of got to tell you a story about your daddy, right? I'm still on the waiting list for Rutgers Law School from 1983, right?
But Zaid, we went to law school because of her daddy.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
She don't know that.
Let me tell you this story. Malcolm has said all that stuff that they're talking about, right? The first lawyer that made me say, yeah, I want to do it just like that was your father when Aisha's mother and Bilal got him busted and captured, and they were on the news, and the lawyer and the dashiki talking. I said, I won't be like that Negro right there.
That's right.
That's probably why I ain't get in.
He was a smooth one before. Like he would walk in that courtroom and he would walk out even bigger and better with his clients.
Oh, when we finally connected, oh man, your father was gold to us. I'm gonna tell you. Right? Let's bring Conrad. We got to get Conrad in there because we just raised the voting question. We got to get his feedback and his input on this. Where you at, beloved? Come on in, Conrad. Can you hear us?
Got to unmute yourself, brother Conrad.
Yeah, he's still muted.
I see muted.
I know he got.
I'll say one thing while we're trying to get Brother Conrad unmuted is that everything you just said, Ed, we do have to organize, and organizing includes, making the connections between a place like the Algebra Project, right, and lawyering, keeping our children free from cages, right, both in the prevention way as well as in the way of once they get caught up in the legal system, how we get them out as an alternative, So like, I just, organize.
That's right. That's right. That's how you build a nation. Now that Conrad was able to unmute himself. Can you hear us, beloved? We still can't. He's still not. I don't know if he can hear us.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now we can. There you go.
Okay, great.
Come on in, black man. We know you got something to say.
I've been enjoying the program. Always a pleasure to hear everyone and the other sister that was on. And I just echo all of that. I think it's a wonderful and important time. I'm excited about the National Black Political Convention, revisiting Gary, looking at a Black agenda in this time, because I look at the expanse of the Black community and I see where there's so many people that are making contributions, whether it's in Mississippi or New York, where you talk about Bob Moses, Fannie Lou Hamer, Chokwe Lumumba. I mean, Eric Adams now in New York, and just so many levels. And we just got to come together and see, as Rukia said, what we can agree on and step forward. I just had one question. Were you referring to Bilal Sunni Ali? Did Chokwe Lumumba represent him? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, the great, the great.
Absolutely.
Like it was yesterday. It's 40 years ago, but I can remember like it was yesterday.
Yes, sir. All right. Great musician, freedom fighter. I used to see, used to go at Gil Scott Heron's show every year at the down in the village, and it was just a blessing to be with he and BJ and Bilal Sunni Ali. So that's how many circles and connections we have. So that's a blessing. But these elections are big around the country, and one of the things that New York, we just had a big election, the second African American mayor in the history of our city. And one of the things that people don't realize is that Eric Adams' election is very significant. First of all, Eric Adams was born and raised in the outer boroughs, born in Brooklyn, in the ghetto in Brooklyn, raised in Queens, went to New York City public schools, was undiagnosed, like so many of our young people, as being dyslexic, and struggled. Was able to go later and get his college degree and master's degree, but went to serve on the police force, but also a victim of police brutality, and writes about that and talks about that. There's not one case from Michael Stewart, Yusuf Hawkins, the attack on the mosque in '94, every Abner Louima, Ramarley Graham, every struggle that we faced in New York in the last 40 years. Eric Adams was on the front line. He started with Reverend Daughtry and Charles Barron, and Reverend Daughtry challenged some of the young men to go on the police force and be there. And with his 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement and the Guardians Association, that man was at press conferences, marches, standing with Sharpton, Mason Maddox, Tawana Brawley, Muslims, everybody, and then have to go back to work in the police precincts, where he was just standing with people who were considered persona non grata. So I think it's a great opportunity. I don't think New York has had such a grassroots mayor since Fiorello LaGuardia. And that's a very important thing. The last two mayors we've had have been Bostonians, one from Cambridge, one from Medford. And I don't think Bill de Blasio ever really got New York City, and that it's not a homogeneous, bucolic setting like his native Cambridge. So I'm excited about Eric Adams. Law enforcement is important because, as Sister Rukia said, our legislature, Charles Barron, and all of our Black legislatures have fought to get these brothers opportunities and sisters so that they would have no cash bail. But we also have to follow that up with a message with our brothers. We got to stop committing crimes, because crime is out of control in our community, and we are the number one victims of that crime. And that's just a fact. So while we're fighting for creative alternative programs, we've also got to get down in those trenches with some of these brothers and sisters and say, look, we did not do this for you to commit crimes. We're trying to get you out of crime and lead a better life. And so that's very important to me. And I'm committed to working with Eric, and I know Hawk Newsom and some others have come out against him, but they just got on the scene. They don't know this brother, and I think his work is going to be very important.
But Brother Conrad, what do you think about, you know, the that meeting that he had with the Black Lives Matter New York
Right.
branch, where him and the brother was saying some outrageously crazy things, man, to Eric, as Eric
Yeah.
was talking about bringing back stop and frisk.
Right. Well, what Eric has said is that, first of all, Eric Adams was protesting stop and frisk under de Blasio and under Bloomberg and under Giuliani, because he said it is a misuse of stop and frisk. The critical issue for Eric Adams was that a number was assigned to these folks. A number, it was called product.
We lost.
So I know we lost Brother Conrad, but I'm going to jump in while we're waiting on him to come back, and I'll be quiet. One thing I'll say is that absolutely we have to make sure that when we put people in positions, that we're putting people in positions to not just be a part of that system, but actually to disrupt the system and create the system that it's supposed to be in the first place, or that we need it to be. So I think we have a lot of work to do within the New York police force. I think we have a lot of work to do there. And I think that more important than focusing so much attention and energy on the police department is that we do need to see, exactly as Keesha just talked about, Director Keesha just talked about on the call, is investing that money in offices of violence prevention that actually prevent crime. Right. Because statistics and data show that police don't stop crime, but police do investigate crime. If we want to talk about the role of police, we can talk about that, right? But they're two different things. And I think we have to reimagine what public safety is right now. And these are not things that are just things that we're just envisioning. These are things that are happening. And New York City is one of the places where you and
it should happen.
Are one of the places where you see a lot of it happening.
That's
you
right.
see a lot of violence, pure violence programs. You see a lot of credible messenger programs. You see a wealth of resources put into communities to actually be the dictators and the doers of providing public safety for their neighborhoods. And I think if we put just as much money, if not more money, into services like that, into programs like that, we will see a decreased need for things like policing to investigate after the fact, right? Yeah. So I think that's really important, because I don't want us to lose that charge. And then let's jump to this brother, Hawk Newsome. I think the brother Hawk Newsome, I think it's really important to understand that he is not a part of the official Black Lives Matter movement. His organization he started his own movement, his own BLM. He started something that's not connected to the larger BLM. So that's one thing, and I think that's important to recognize. But I think that even when we hear people talk in a way where we feel it is brass, or it is crazy, or it is talking too much, we got to listen in between the lines. What is he really saying, right? Throw away all of the hype talk. Throw away all of the talk that's just about getting attention. And let's go back to the deeper part of this, which is, are you willing to work with us, brother? So Eric Adams is in this position, and I had the pleasure of meeting and engaging with Eric Adams when I was living in New York for 10 years, doing alternative to incarceration work, the two of New York City's largest alternative to incarceration programs. And I do remember him being a community organizer, being one that was speaking out against police violence. I remember him coming and talking to our parents in our programs to encourage them to not call the police on their children, right? So I remember those days. But when we get into office, we sometimes began to become part of a system instead of remaining part of the people and that people power. And so we want to make sure that our brother Eric Adams is still very much feels the accountability, the shared accountability, right, that we as community have to him, and him as our representative has to us. And so I think that's the real message there is, are we going to really work together? I think Raz Baraka has done an amazing job of being an example of how community and government can actually be co-creators of policies and practices that are good for our people. And so I hope that our brother Eric Adams is able to take note and to use the example that Mayor Brother Baraka has provided.
Do we have him back yet? I don't think we even have him back yet. Because there's so much to ask, and it's already 8 o'clock. I also wanted to ask him about this young brother that just got elected to be the first black DA for Manhattan, young brother Bragg, Alvin Bragg, right? Kind of, he was somebody who was off my radar, and that's an old fight that we have been having. In New York City, I can remember when we ran Steve Vernon Mason for district attorney a bunch of years ago. That's a whole fight. So we definitely miss Conrad's insight on that New York front. But how are you looking at this nationally? Because there's some other stories I want to just throw at you too, right? What happened to our sister Walton up in Buffalo was, I think, horrible, traitorous, and disgusting, and the kind of thing that turns our young folks off from getting involved in the work that you were talking about. Not only do we see it not working, but when we see black folks get in front of undermining a genuine, legitimate grassroots voice coming forward and collaborating with some of the most backwards elements, out here to do it in the process, that was horrible. That was absolutely horrible. I want to hear your thoughts on that and anything else.
Unfortunately, I've been caught up in this Southern world that I missed it. So I don't know. I can't offer any real perspective on it.
Oh,
I apologize. We've been caught up. I do have to. I'm sorry. I do have to jump. Okay. But I did want to lift one person who recently passed. She passed 2 days ago. Is Jamie Scott of the Scott sisters. So Jamie and Gladys Scott were two sisters who sentences were commuted back in 2011. It was one of my father's last major cases. But these two sisters have been convicted with 2 double life sentences for allegedly robbing 2 white men of $11, of which they have always claimed their innocence, but they were given 2 life sentences. This was back in the early 1990s. They were convicted. In 2011, after spending 18 years in prison, we were able to convince my father and his team, Ben Jealous, and a number of folks were able to convince the Mississippi governor at the time, Haley Barbour, to release them because Jamie was also dying of kidney failure.
Yes.
So their sentence was commuted and they were released. To this day, we're still fighting to get them removed from lifetime parole. So they were released, but then giving lifetime parole, where they have to report to a parole officer every month and still pay a parole fee, right, for their life. And so we're working on that.
I remember them now. Yes. It took me a minute to put it together. I remember them.
Gladys and Jamie Scott, a true example of how corrupt and how egregious and how unusually punitive our criminal system is to Black, brown, and indigenous folks and to women. But Jamie passed away 2 days ago of COVID complications. She had finally this year received her kidney transplant and caught COVID a couple of months ago and passed away of COVID complications 2 days ago. So we want to lift up their family.
Yep.
And ask people to look up Google Sisters of Hope. It's an organization that Gladys and Jamie started to provide reentry services to women coming home. And we're still in that fight to get them off of lifetime parole. Jamie's gone, but Gladys is still here. And before she ever leaves this earth, we want to make sure that she leaves it not on parole. So
yeah, it is.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Well, Sister Rukia, we want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. To do your show. We appreciate it. We missed you. And, always your contribution is important to our struggle. And, other sisters need to see you so they know they're not struggling alone like Keesha. And so we appreciate that. And thank you so much.
Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all. Peace.
All
right, Chris.
Peace.
Okay, Freeland. All right. Okay.
Yeah, what's good, Chris?
What's going on, Chris Randall?
What's going on? How are y'all?
You, my brother. So I understand you coming in to fill in for Mr. Austin tonight.
You know, some things never change. Sometimes, you get stuck jumping in for Jonathan Austin.
Yeah. Well,
even though he wears size 28 shoe, I'm trying to figure it out. But
I don't know if it's about the shoe, my brother. You know what I mean?
28 shoe.
But no, how are y'all? How are y'all doing?
I'm good, man.
Oh, full tilt. Full tilt.
I am so glad to be here and be able to have this discussion in the one that I thought I was going to have to be involved in. I'm glad that beautiful little sister is safe and everything is good with that. That brought me some joy today.
Yes, sir.
Because that was weighing very heavily on my heart, and I'm glad that we do not have to deal with that in the same way.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Well, we thank God, man, that she's safe, and we had some thorough conversation about that, and and we thank God that she, however she survived over a month, we're glad it was safe,
Yeah.
And so, hopefully we can, as a community, figure out, how to help her going forward, and at the same time help her mother,
Amen.
So we praise and believe God that all is well, man. But Chris, what's going on, my brother? Everything in the black world, brother.
I mean, we're in probably the most interesting. We're probably in one of the more interesting historical moments, because when I think about a lot of the recent appearances I've had on All Politics Local, when I think about the things that people have been saying as it relates to elections, voting, all of that kind of stuff, you're now seeing these places, Virginia, New Jersey, are showing that we're going to have serious progressive agendas in order to maintain any level of political power whatsoever.
Say that again, son.
We're going to have even more progressive legislation in order to maintain any political power whatsoever, because I think the records are clearly showing that the time of the successful moderate, quote unquote, moderate Democrat is over. That's over.
You heard what Rukia said.
I hope the Democrats hear you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, what I was saying was, I don't know if you heard what Rukia just said, man. She said that when we come into power, and she was talking about Eric Adams. She said that we can't legislate like those folks before us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We gotta come in. We gotta shake things up, right? And your move to power has got to be making the lives of Black people better, like other people. When they come into power, their first agenda is to make the lives better for their people. Right?
That's right.
And I think that we've got to do that, and we can't have any shame about it, right? Because I remember Minister Farrakhan saying years ago, Brother Zaid, when I was a young man, he said, when you take a picture and you in a group of people, he said, who's the first person you look at in the picture? So you look at yourself.
That's right.
Right. And then you look at everybody else. Right. And so from that perspective, if you think about it, a wise man, if he gets an opportunity at power, he wants to figure out how he can help his people first, and then everybody else. Right. And that's the problem. We've elected people to those positions, and that's why we've got to have a conversation, like Rukia said, at the 50th anniversary of the National Black Political Convention next year. We've got to have this conversation about that, man. That like Mtume says, time for new leadership.
I mean,
we can't have the same old leadership, the same old brothers getting into power and doing the same old things.
But the truth is I think that there's a prerequisite. Is unfortunately in academia, you're seeing this huge push against authenticity testing in terms of who we say is Black. But the truth is, we don't have a static definition for what that is. So as a result, you can get people who look like you but don't share your heart, as Gardner Taylor put it. And so the reality is, the most glaring reality for me has been the treatment of the Asian hate bill versus the question of criminal justice and police reform. One moves the needle immediately. The other one kind of stands and sits in the legislation forever. But I think the reality is the question is who pushes those agendas and what's relevant. But anytime we make compromise consistently, that's the word we know is compromise. And then the next level of it is, well, good is good enough. It's a sad question, but the question is just sort of how we all look at it and orient ourselves to it.
But we've come to this place though, Chris, where, you know, if life is going to change for Black folk, we've got to change it, right? Because I think if we're depending on other people to do it for us, it ain't gonna happen. This is the last hurrah, right? I was just listening, you know, before you came on. One of the things Keesha was talking about, she was talking about the increase of fights that are occurring between young people, right? That young people don't have a pause button, right? All they have is this button when they can't work their situations out or talk, right? They want to fight. There's more and more fights going on in high schools. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Principal Kafele just weighed in on that when we were talking about that a little while ago. He echoed that same idea. Yes.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that. And so when you think about that, right, if we don't, and you heard what Rukia said, she said, we got to get in front of it instead of locking these kids up. We've got to get in front of it to figure out a way, how do we help them before they get to the penal stage, right? And so we need to find out, what are they fighting for? What are they fighting over, right? And how do we help them?
Well, a few years ago, Ed, you told a story that just ruptured the way I saw the world. And I won't use all the language that you used, but you talked about how you went to a court and you watched a murder case, and the brother shot another Black man.
Oh yeah.
And when they said, is there anything that you want to say to the court? He said, yeah, I mean, I'm guilty. I get it. Y'all gonna lock me up. Right. Y'all gonna give me a life sentence and I only killed the N-word?
That's right. That's exactly what he said.
The truth is I think, at least for me,
and that's one of the reasons why we do that to each other on the streets too, because the consequences ain't the same. We do not value our lives like we should.
Well, I mean, it's hard to value something that you see systematically devalued by the system around you.
That's right. Make it
so it's hard to see. It's hard to see value in yourself when you're operating from the perspective that you're obviously not valuable, because if you were valuable, certain life realities of yours wouldn't exist.
Fanon call that the black skin and the white mass.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about that in the Wretched of the Earth, that when the colonized can't strike against the colonizer, they strike against themselves. Paraphrasing, of course, but that's the point. All these fights are predictable. And I watched Aubrey Hendricks recently, an interview he just did. He just wrote this amazing book about evangelical Christians and their support of Donald Trump. And he said, I am not hopeful that white people or white Christians will become more humane. So a lot of the systems that we have in place to resolve these issues are just always going to be perpetually ineffective, because there's an underlying necessity of other people to change their orientation toward Black people, and that's never going to happen. So there has to be a more effective conversation. I'm not sure how to lead that conversation, but that's certainly the case.
But you know, I think that the place for us, right, to have some real dialogue, you know, is going to be at the 50th anniversary of the National Black Political Convention. Let me tell you something, man. The one thing that Rukia and I are constantly talking about, Brother Zaid, is that, you know, we wanted to have it straight with no chaser. You know, right? We don't care who's there, right? We want to have a conversation as Black folk. When we say we want Black people to stop killing each other, we mean that shit, brother.
That's
right. And we want to tell you why that means, you know, you killing your brother and what that really means. We want to tell you that when you do that, you take a soldier off the field, right? because your politics ain't no different than that brother's politics. What it really is really your understanding of the situation you in.
No, the lack of. That's right.
Right. If you understood it better, right, you would react to your situation with your brother differently, right? You would almost instantaneously, if you understood your situation, right, you would say, you know what, brother, you catching hell just like I'm catching hell. You just catching it on a different level. That ain't from me. That's from Malcolm, right?
That's right.
Malcolm said we all brothers. He said, look, man. He said you can call me what you will, brother. He said, but when white folk come in here and say they want to kill some niggas, they don't want to say I want to kill that tall one, but I don't want to kill that short one. No, he said he want to kill him some niggas, brother.
Yeah, I don't want to kill a Muslim or a Christian. Right.
That's right.
Right. And
Democrat or elk.
Right. That's right. Remember Malcolm said that?
That's
he
right.
said, we ain't coming in here for that. He said they're very clear. He said, well, brothers, we got to understand that as well. And that's why at the convention, we got to have real talk with each other. We don't want to sugarfoot that, man. That's the problem, right? You want to put together a black agenda and you want to be able to say to white folk what it is, but we've got other black folks who just like that brother who was on Brother Kamosi, where he said that the majority of the people that are in their positions now are in their positions because they screwed Baraka. Remember he told us that?
That's right.
Yeah.
These people got their jobs and their positions, and we built screwed Amiri.
Forgive my ignorance, but I haven't seen other groups ever build monuments to people who sell out the best of their movement. But I thought that I heard the brother say that King Gibson did not work for the best interests of the community, but I could have sworn he just got a monument. So at some point we got to have a penalty for that sort of behavior. And Minister Farrakhan also said that, if we were a nation and we looked at ourselves as a nation, we would punish our traitors. You would rather jump in the ocean with a millstone around your neck than sell out our movement. But we reward people who do that to us. They get our support. We have chucks and pearls and all that. We do that.
But a lot of that has slavery connotations, right?
Oh yes, sir. 100%.
You gotta remember that that's what those plantation niggas did too, brother. You know what I mean?
I agree.
That's why Malcolm said there was a difference between us. He said there was some of us who was house niggas and field niggas, right?
That's right.
He differentiated between those. And remember how he laid it out, right? He said when the master gets sick, he said them house niggas said, "We sick, boss."
Boss, we sick. We sick.
Right? Yeah. He's sick, but you gonna say we sick, boss?
We sick.
But the field nigga, right? Zahir, he said when he found out the master
nigga prayed that he died. That's right.
That's what Malcolm said, brother. You know what I mean?
He said the master house on fire. We pray that.
That's right. Pray for the wind to come.
Exactly. Right.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. The 10th was the anniversary of Message to the Grassroots, by the way. Just 2 days ago was the anniversary of them dropping that seed. That's right. Yeah.
And we still got people, unfortunately, in our movement who sell us out. Right.
And our movement is still too immature to make them pay for that.
Yeah. And because we've got people, right, like Kamosi said, who sold Amiria, we got people who hate this conversation we having, right? Because the conversation is just too black for them. And that and you got to remember that's what Kwame Ture was saying when he talked about Black Power and when he was talking about Black Power organizing for Black Power and in order to do that, right, you've got to think about how do we organize, because what Rukia was saying was we want to organize for Black political power in order to change the lives of our people locally. Right?
That's right.
And that's why she was saying she wanted to talk to Keesha, because they need to do the same thing in Jackson. How do we copy what y'all doing in Newark? How do you bring that here, Keesha? And how do we do that?
And Chris, he got Black Power sitting over his shoulder while he talking. You see that, right?
Right. Oh yeah, the book. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
I mean, listen, man, I read that book almost 30 years ago. Right?
Well,
I see it, brother.
Chris got Revolutionary Suicide, Huey's writing.
Yeah. I read that book almost 30 years ago, and I'm rereading the book, man.
But you saw what Charles Hamilton Houston said in the 1992 version of it. When we got race hustlers, he said that. That's written in the 19 when it was edited and then put back out again in the 90s.
Kwame didn't wait till 1992.
I was talking about Charles Hamilton in the preface. He writes about.
I got you. I got you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like at the end of the day, that's what we got. I have learned over the last several years to look at it and say, melanation and association ain't the same thing.
Absolutely.
And I was in a situation where I saw somebody who was absolutely black and in power and tried to ruin the best of the black thing that I was the most associated with. And I look around the table and everybody around the table is black.
Yeah. We in that struggle right now, and unfortunately, we got people who are always gonna be against our rise, brother, who look like us, and that's unfortunate, right?
Yeah,
and that's why there's got to be a separation, right, in the water. There's got to be, right. We've got to understand that those people over there, and we're over here, right. And then we've got to work with those people that are over here, because we're never going to be able to get in unity with them because they've already made their decisions, right? They don't want to be free, and they don't want to be liberated. And so if we clear on that, then the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that when you know someone, he said you can better deal with them. If you don't know him, you can't deal with him, right? But when we know these people, we can deal with them, brother. We ain't got to fight you. We ain't got to argue with you.
Right.
But what we can do is that we can learn to put people in power who got our interests in mind, who got our community's interests at heart, and move in that direction, right?
Sure.
Listen, man, if Mayor Baraka wasn't straight out, my brother, and doing right by the people, listen, man, I heard John break down how Mayor Baraka is so clear about how Black folk move and how we got the right to identify ourselves, name ourselves, do for ourselves, right? And then clearly understand government's place in helping us. Why? Because they put us in this position. We ain't in this position because we put ourselves in this position.
That's right.
But
they put in systems and policies. Listen, man, let me tell you something I heard, Brother Zaid. I don't know if y'all heard this, but I heard the energy secretary, the dude who ran for mayor, I forget his name, Buttigieg, right? I heard him say
the one who ran for president.
Yeah, remember he ran for president.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Remember he was talking the other night, and he was talking about critical race theory, right? And one of the things he said about critical race theory was he was saying part of the problem is, because he was telling people that even when the bridges were built, that they had a racist connotation when they were building bridges through Black communities, right? Get this, Zaid.
In Baltimore, we got one called the Highway to Nowhere.
Right, but here's what the white boy said. He said that, and I've never heard this. He said that when they were building bridges, brother, and he named the white man. He said when they were building bridges and infrastructure, he said they on purpose would build bridges that were low, so people who drove particular kinds of cars or trucks couldn't drive through certain neighborhoods. That's what he said. And he said they did that in Black and Latino neighborhoods. So you couldn't drive certain ways. He said they built roads that would go around certain ways so that even if you came to that neighborhood, he said these people would know you were coming. This is what institutionalized racism is.
Looks like.
This is how deep it is.
Right?
Right? And so if we were to talk about critical race theory, what they're really saying is they really, I heard someone put it this way, Chris. What they really talking about is they talking about that 1619 project, right? That's what they mean. So when they talk about critical race theory, they say, "Oh, we don't ever want that to be taught." And that's why you could have Condoleezza Rice say what she said on The View when she said, I don't want white children to feel bad. I don't want them to feel sad by knowing what they did to us, because that might make them feel sad to know what their grandparents did.
Yeah, but see, for me, I think that what we're not doing is we are allowing people to articulate something as critical race theory when we just need to be saying we want accurate portrayals of history.
That might help changing the language, right?
Yeah,
because I think that white folk get hung up on the word.
Yeah, and here's the craziest part. Because I'm so attached to academia and because I'm attached to debate, I can tell you critical race theory ain't been relevant in 30 years. They 30 years late on a conversation that we resolved 30 years ago. They 30 years late. No book has come out about, other than a collection of the essays or whatever, has come out about that in 30 years. That's not a term people are using anymore. That's literally not a term people are using anymore. And the reality is, they prey on the ignorance of. Did you see what the white defense attorney just said in the Ahmaud Arbery case?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
How we need more it's not a jury of his peers because we need more bubbas on the jury.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, more.
There's only one black juror.
Yeah, we need more uneducated white men on the jury. Yeah.
Wow.
Right. And the truth is,
I heard what I heard was when he made that statement about the preachers. He said there are too many black preachers in here.
Mm-hmm.
When Reverend Sharpton came in and sat down, and the day before that it was Reverend Jackson, right?
Yeah, it was William Barber was there the day before.
Yeah,
Reverend Jackson hasn't even got there yet.
Yeah, so he made that statement when he saw Reverend Sharpton come in and sit down, right?
Yeah.
So he said that there are too many black preachers coming in there, but yet there's an all-white jury.
All but one. There's only one black person on the jury.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a fundamental reality.
I hope is that when they get down to trying to vote, right, and he will make it ununanimous and say nope, the brother's innocent, and they can't get it to fly. All they need is one, and I hope he be that one.
Yeah, I think that they're going to want to, and I think it's strange, right? Because for me, I am less upset at because in the era in which I was born, I still deal with the nicest version of white people that have ever existed. But my beef now is in lots of situations is with elders from my own community who are looking to destroy my future and sell me out.
Oh yeah, me too. I got that issue, but I made.
Why burn to say I'm gonna give the election over to a former segregationist and I don't want nothing in return? Joe Biden, we try to paper over that like he's not he wasn't a segregationist in Delaware and Pennsylvania. Like we act like he wasn't that guy as a younger man, which is why he was sponsored something like the 1994 crime bill. He's the guy that was the architect of that whole debacle. So, which shouldn't have shocked you if you know he's a segregationist. But for somebody from my community to say, I'm gonna do business with that guy, and I want nothing in return, tells me where I am politically and what we have to do. And which is why I'm in total agreement with you, Ed, in terms of the importance of having that black meeting, the 50th anniversary of that meeting, because that has to be an agenda item. Right. We might need to have that conversation before we even get there.
Yeah. Don't
even come in here with your tap shoes. Don't bring the shuffle shoes with you when you come.
Well, I think that one of the things that Bashir talked about is that we want to have something constantly echoing in the spirit in there, right? That that this meeting is protected by the red, the black, and the green, right? Have it constantly echoing out, right? So that they clear when we start having that black conversation what it's protected by. Right?
Yeah, when the tap dance shoes could get pulled out the purses and out the backpacks.
Right. And because at the end of the day, it's not about it, because remember in 1972, Miriam was fighting with, the brothers and sisters who were considered accommodationalists, right?
Mm-hmm.
These people, wanted to go along to get along. They didn't want to change anything, right? And remember, Miriam was clear about it was about the unification of Black people. That's what he saw it as. He said that at the press conference, right? And he was clear that was the focus. Unfortunately, you had integrationalists that was there that wanted to integrate. And remember, Dr. King said that he think he made as he was coming to the close of his life. Remember, he said he thought that he might have made a mistake by entering into a burning house.
That's what he said to Harry Belafonte. Yes, he did.
Right. And so when we look at where we are, Chris, what we've got to understand is that there has to be a new way of doing business for Black people. This is it, man. All I'm telling you is that if Black people are going to survive, because at the rate we killing each other, all the white man got to do is leave us alone, brother. Because Keesha said today, she said that there are more and more fights in high school than ever before.
Right. And Rudy Kafela echoed that same point.
Right.
But the problem is, and I guess that's sort of where it becomes weird for me. I teach high school students. I'm with them every day. The distinction is when you talk to them, they're experiencing what Eddie Glaude calls the value gap. They know that they don't matter, and they know that they are bargaining chips for their parents, for their grandparents, all that, but they actually don't matter. They know that. They are certain that they know that. They know that they don't matter. And they don't believe they matter to us. They know they don't matter to the higher ups, and they know that people are not interested in their future. They know that. When I sit and think about the average person who graduated high school with me, how will they ever be able to earn enough money to purchase a home? Almost all of us are set. The memes going around on the internet amongst Black millennials is we praying for another housing crash so we can actually buy a home. We believe that.
We need to be
when I look at how much it costs,
we need to be pulling some resources and building some affordable housing cooperatively. That's what we need to be doing.
Yeah, because like buying a house in Newark for me, that's probably not gonna happen. You start talking about houses in some of the worst neighborhoods at 250, 300,000. The kids are fighting in high school because they don't think they have a future to live for.
Right about that, son.
They don't believe they have a future to live for. So we have to convince them. We have to show them signs. We at least have to show them, as the Bible says, signs and wonders of a future that might be good.
But then the question becomes, who taught them that? Right? Is it society that taught them that, or is it the household they live in that taught them that? Right? Where did they get that from? Right? That they don't have a future? Because I don't know if you heard it earlier. One of the things I saw maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks ago at the last men's meeting, when I was telling Keesha, I saw the mayor go from the men's meeting trying to save brothers on a Thursday, and Friday morning going to a high school trying to save their sons. So I'm like, wait a minute. So what kind of work is the father doing to save his own son if the mayor trying to save you, and now your son going to school in the morning, he got to try to save him? Who's he listening to? Where's he getting this level of hope? There's just no hope for me.
Well,
where's that coming from?
Well,
I'm saying we've got to. I'm clear, right, Chris and Zaid? I'm clear as Black men that we've got to struggle with each other, right? Because some of us are not where others are. I'm clear on that, right? However, I'm saying that this thing that me and Zaid talk about all the time, right? We've got to develop some sort of Black code that says, just as Black men, as brothers, hey man, I'm gonna be committed to not hurting you. I'm gonna be committed to not killing you. I'm gonna be committed to, even if we disagree, I'm gonna be willing to say, you know what, hey brother, I'm gonna agree to disagree with you, but I'm not gonna kill you. I'm gonna walk the other way.
Right, exactly right.
Well, I think, but the reality of preservation of life is inextricably linked to the
quality of life.
Not just the quality of life, but the value of life itself, right? And so there are things that I have experienced. I'm talking about on a level of having been on an airplane before. That a vast majority of people I know that I grew up with have not had that experience. I am truly saying that between it, you telling me I can be in my underwear eating ice cream and a white woman come in my apartment and kill me, and my mama and my brother and my grandmama and my uncle go hug her and tell her they love her and they sorry and they forgive her. What you think like seeing that kind of thing on television says to a kid that's with limited life experience and limited political education? What do you think that says? And a woman that looked just like your mama and your sister and all that.
They shout you out, Chris.
Oh, thank you, Principal. And hold on one second. And a woman that looked like your mama and your auntie is doing the woman's hair in court of the person that shot you. No, I'm talking about I'm in the house in my underwear eating ice cream. She walked in, killed me. What you think all my debate students would say if that happened to me and they looking at Ed Riley and Zaid Muhammad and Bashir Kenyele and Mr. Austin all hugging up her and tell her that they love her and all that. And we mad that they fighting. But this is the world they live in. They see us do that. We can't fix these kids till we deal with the reality of the way we exist in ourselves. It's us.
That's right, son. That's right.
They watching us do that kind of foolishness.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We used to shut down city streets, Chris, and I had my troops. That's the first thing I would do is apologize to the kids for the foul. And I just dealt with it from a generational side because it was my crew that came at us with that crack, and we thought it was a party. It wasn't a genocide. See, and destroyed some of our capacity to even do the most fundamental thing that a human adult is supposed to be able to do. That's supposed to be able to parent, and we want to see why our kids are wilding out here because we was gone.
Man,
we were gone, and we ran to it instead of running it out of town.
I literally have told. I posted on social media. I think DJ Rhino saw it. I posted on social media when it happened. If anybody kill me like that, and I don't want one of y'all better not get on here talking about how y'all love them and y'all and all that. No. Mm-mm. When the brother from Minnesota, when the brother was sitting in his car and he told the police officer he had a gun, his own brother showed up with a white woman talking about my wife is white and I don't hate white people and I'm so sorry. How we think kids ain't gonna be acting crazy if we act like that? Oh my That's God. Us.
See, but I think that was one of the reasons why I think Minister Farrakhan had said that he wanted to open up the FOI training to young black men, period. Meaning that you didn't have to be in the Nation of Islam, but that there was something that you needed to learn from that FOI training, right? And that's true, right? Because most black men don't have any training like that, right? And one of the first things you learn in the FOI training is you learn knowledge of self, right? You learn how to, self-defense is another one of them, but you learn knowledge of self, and you learn to love yourself. And you learn to love your brother, right?
That's right.
And that's something that you're always going to need,
right?
That's something that you're going to need because. Just like what Chris was just explaining, that situation that spawns the confusion, and confusion, leads to the mental illness. You know what I'm saying? So then, what you're saying, Ed, is exactly what we need to counteract that. You know what I'm saying? We need to understand that no, it's right to fight and defend yourself. You know what I'm saying? When it comes down to certain situations, it's okay to defend yourself and fight. You know what I mean? Just stand there and talk about forgiveness and prayer and all of that. There's time for forgiveness. There's time for prayer, but there's also time to fight and defend yourself.
How about somebody that's going to go sit with a family of a man who was killed running down the street, told me that if only thing I should be able to give, that he had to give to me for the legacy of the civil rights movement is pull up my pants and don't sleep with people I ain't got no business and don't smoke no weed.
Who you talking about, Jesse?
I ain't say no names. I'm just saying on this program, a gentleman we interviewed that I asked that question said that, and now we trusted him to go sit with the family of the person killed in a genocidal, in an extra legal genocidal act. Help me out.
That's why there's new generations, Chris. That's why there's new generations, man.
That's right.
To take different directions.
Yeah, bro, some people need to stay in their lane.
Yeah, man.
I'm just saying this is where we at. Like, so I feel like hearing Keesha talk about Director Eure talk about the amount of the proliferation of violence in schools, it should be predictable because we don't love ourselves enough to portray an image of loving ourselves in public.
And the other part of it is, and you know, and I'm gonna throw it to you, DJ Rhino. You know, I know this is your segment. You know, I just think, man, that you know, at the end of the day, we got to change the conversation with ourselves. Right?
100%.
We got to change
it, man.
To
change the narrative.
That's right. We got to change it, and until we do that, right, things are not going to get better, man. And when us having these kind of conversations right now is part of that. I think that when young people hear us talk, you know, because I can remember a time. I don't know if y'all do, man, but Zaid, I know you do. I can remember a time, man, when you go around brothers, you know, around me and Zaid's age, you know, all they would happen was some stupid conversations, calling women out of their name. Yo, what's up with that B? Yo, what's going, you know, I mean, having crazy conversation. And then when I got into the cultural movement, right, at a young age in the Nation of Islam, you know, it was always about that thing that Les Brown used to say, never talk to people who have a language down here. Always talk to people that got a language up here. And if they talking down here, you say, hey, brother, can you bring that up a little bit? Because we can't talk down here, brother, right? Talk up here, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where I think we got to change the dialogue. But like Mayor Baraka said, is that most of these brothers that are having these conversations want to talk to us ain't never read a damn book.
Some of us still can't read. Right? We were made to, you know, one of the things that you had to do, and I don't know if you ever had to go through this because you know you literate and all that. But one of the things they used to make us do in the nation when you came in, you had to fill out that card a certain way just to make sure, you know, and that was for those of us who are not literate, to realize that we had to do that. You wanted to come into this circle, the Nation of Islam, you're going to be able to read and write, right? Like you know your name and know who you are, right? You had to get that. You wanted that X, you had to get that straight, you know? And that revealed in a self-critical way the things that we had to do to bring ourselves up.
Yeah.
And to be willing to humble ourselves. Right? Yeah. The hard thing for men to do. Humble ourselves to recognize that we need to do that.
Yeah. I think that brings it right back to what DJ Rhino's segment. Hip hop is the most important thing in the world. Because I think
for artists purposes, definitely.
There are artists that I think don't get listened to right now because they're too smart.
But the ones who are getting listened to, Rhino, and you know this is true, Rhino, right? I mean, they got all this bullshit on the air, but the cats who really got something to say ain't getting the airplay.
That's right.
Yeah, you know that's
what you're talking about.
You know, I heard T.I. say this the other day. Yeah, T.I. said, you know, he was having a conversation with a brother, and the brother said, "Yo, man," he said, "how come so and so ain't getting the airplay?" He said, "Yo," he said, "you know, he should be right on target for that movement." He said, "Yeah." He said, "But what movement are you talking about, brother?" Mm-hmm. See what I mean? And
T.I. you know, investing in housing.
The mainstream is not supporting our struggle. The mainstream is not here to support our struggle.
The mainstream go undermine our struggle.
Exactly.
Fact.
Exactly.
To divide us for the sake of markets.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh man, Principal Kafela just dropped a jewel. At some point, we need to discuss the influence of contemporary commercial hip hop music. It's a relevant conversation. Oh, right on, right on, right on.
And just so he know that, brother Kafele, that's going to be a major discussion at the convention, brother.
It
Just
should
what
be.
you laying out, brother.
Just ought to be
Major discussion, brother.
Because see, these companies, they made sure on purpose that we were not going to have another Public Enemy. We were not going to have another X.
That's right.
Who stole the
soul?
soul?
On purpose.
That's right.
Because the impact that it made. You know what I'm saying? Think
That's
about
right.
the impact that was being made in hip hop and music. What was happening in TV and entertainment at that time. Remember, Bill Cosby was big. Different World was a black college TV show. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of stuff was going on. You know, black entrepreneurship was coming out. It was really blowing up at that time in the early 90s. You know, with Cross Colors. You know, everybody had their own clothing line or their own something. You know, magazine or something. Everybody has something. So, you know, they try to make sure that type of energy does not happen again. So they don't want to put out anything that's going to be positive, that's going to be inspiring. They want to give you, you know, the regular BS that's going to just have you lacking back. You know what I mean?
Has anybody seen?
It's designed that way.
So you mean no reality show has blown up T.I. investing in affordable housing?
Nah,
that's
you know
something
that.
Definitely too that ain't nobody talking about.
Yeah, I just read about that earlier this week. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They'll talk about him if he had the wrong person on his boat with him, but not if he built a housing for black people. That ain't right.
Hey Rhino, this is your segment, brother. Whatever you want to talk about, man. We don't want to monopolize it, brother.
All right, man. Well, let me get all of the bad news and all the other stuff out of the way, man. I know some of y'all probably heard about this whole Travis Scott situation.
Indeed, brother.
Texas. Yeah, big deal, man. Happened in Houston, Texas, man. It was called the Astro World Festival. You know, Astro World was the name of one of his albums, and you know that was like a theme of his that he was going off of. But I got to put it out there, man. From a hip hop perspective, you know, I finally watched the recording of the show. I also watched different clips and footage of you know, different people's testimonies of what happened that day. Just from what I got, and this is just my opinion from what I got. I saw it. There are clips out there where you can tell Travis Scott did not know the severity of the situation. There's a couple of clips of Travis Scott where you know, he saw that somebody was having a hard time, somebody was laid out or whatever, and he stopped the music, he stopped the show and was trying to get people to spread out, give him room, let the security you know, help him out and all of that. You know what I'm saying? There was a point where he did that. You know what I'm saying? But at that point, he's thinking, you know, the guy's passed out, and all right, let me go on with the show. And so he went on with the show. Some people was trying to act like, you know, oh, he didn't care. He knew people were dying. He didn't care. It was just, you know, we like we talked about the narrative. Anytime we see the narrative going wrong, we need to jump in. Jump in. That's the two words I got to say to black men. We got to jump in, man. When we see something going down, we got to jump in. When we know what the truth is. This situation, so, you know, it just seemed like, you know, Travis wasn't aware of the severity of the situation. There was security there that wasn't aware of the severity of the situation. But I will say this, you know, there was definitely reports of, you know, they were saying, you know, there was bills being passed around, lace bills, dollar bills being passed around. You know, there was fentanyl in the crowd. You know, this was a big, huge. If you saw the setup was huge. The setup was huge. The arena was huge. It was so many people there. I don't even remember what the capacity was, but it was huge. It was a lot of people there. You know, he had a whole setup on the stage where it looked like the side of a mountain. And in the side of a mountain, it looked like there was a hole in the side of a mountain. And I know that, he was saying that was supposed to be like the portal to the other side, the portal to our world, the portal to astral world and all of that. So, it was a big, huge stage setup, a bunch of pyrotechnics, going on, all of that stuff. So it was huge. But there was a lot of young folk, it was a lot of energy, man, and the energy of Travis Scott, some of his music, it's like mosh pit music. It's like Onyx when Onyx was out.
Right.
MOP also had music like
stuff.
that hard stuff. You get energized, So that kind of thing was going on. That energy was going on. But I know that energy mixed with some of the drugs and just the high level of energy that it was, things got out of hand. But this is something that I'm just throwing in there. And again, this is my personal opinion, nobody else. It's just me. We got to look at this. It's in Houston. It's Travis Scott's hometown. It's also Beyonce's hometown. Beyonce, Jay-Z, Rock Nation, Travis Scott's on Rock Nation. We got to be careful with who's in the crowd. We got to be careful with, anybody trying to start something that ain't natural. You know what I mean? Within the crowd. You know what I'm saying? We don't know what's going on, because there was security guards talking about that they got stuck with needles and passed out. Stuck with
I heard that. Yeah.
So we don't know who's in the crowd doing something like that. Like, what's that about? You know what I mean? Like that's and again, this has nothing to do with Travis Scott. Travis Scott's there to do a show. This is some other nonsense that's taking place in the audience that's being investigated as we speak. So, I don't have any results or solutions or any endings on this because it's still being investigated. It's a huge investigation right now. 8 people died, lost their lives in this situation. So, but I'm just, that was just my take on it, man. Let's not put it on Travis because, again, Travis and a lot of people, because of how many people it were, how big of an event it was, a lot of people really didn't know what was going on. A lot of people didn't know what was going on. But there is an investigation going on. 8 people passed. So, we're going to keep our ear to what took place. But
do you think he provoked that at all?
Because I feel like something else was going on in that audience where somebody was trying to start something that shouldn't have been done. But that's just my take on it. What'd you say, bro?
Do you think that, because some people were saying that he had provoked the audience.
Provoked the audience how?
By, telling them to, I don't know, react to his music in a certain kind of way.
You don't have to tell anybody to react to your music. People are going to react to your music because your music, is what it is. I mean, like I said, Onyx, MOP. I mean, if your music is that high energy like that, it's going to be what it is. You don't have to tell anybody to do anything. That was another take on it too. There was a whole spiritual take on this, like people or I don't want to say spiritual, let's say a religious take on this. A lot of people were talking about, he had demonic images and the shirt he had on and all this other stuff. But if you've ever seen any other rap show, if you ever seen any rock and roll show, all of that's existed before. You know what I mean? That's all existed before. So that's not something that we're going to get into and say, this was some demonic thing and it brought out some demons and all of this. No, if there's drugs involved and there's high energy involved, there's going to be some problems. I've been in those situations in hip hop, back in the days, Latin Quarters and Union Square and, the Roxy and the Rooftop and all of that kind of stuff. That stuff happens. When you got the wrong mixture of things taken off with that, with that energy, you're going to have some violence and there's going to be some problems. And this was one of those situations. It was just very unfortunate that 8 lives were lost in this situation. But again, there's an investigation going on right now to find out exactly what was taking place within the audience, because something was taking place in the audience for that to happen.
Right. Let me ask you this: from an organizing or producing standpoint, I mean, we are still under a COVID watch. We're not as bad as we were this time last year, but we're still under a COVID watch. Because the first thing that went through my mind is that where was the regulation?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That too.
Crowd,
There was a lot of
an anticipated crowd that size, and should have been allowed to get that big, given what we're still dealing with.
Right.
Hey, Baba Saeed, it happened in Texas, and in Texas, COVID has never and will never exist. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah.
I know better.
Yep.
I get you, but I got to say that, because
Governor Greg Abbott is not a fan of any sort of COVID protocols. From mass mandates on down.
But we owe it to ourselves, coming back to one of the original things of the thread of this conversation that we've had. But we owe it to ourselves to protect and take care of ourselves in those kind of situations where we're in control.
Most definitely.
Yeah, but always remember that Texas is one of the states that was kind of rogue when it came to
yes.
Yeah. But what I want to do is introduce everybody to the extended hour.
Extended hour?
What extended hour?
Of all politics.
She got jokes.
Because I don't know what you're talking about in those extended hour.
You got the glasses on. She bugging.
I see 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
You talking about your extended hour, Donna?
It must be a Rhino. It must be off air. And I don't know what politics local she talking about.
All right, but look, real quick.
Somebody just getting off work.
So, go ahead, guys. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right, so real quick, I also just wanted to say, what I got on. Happy anniversary to the Universal Zulu Nation. It was today in 1973.
You repping with your gear.
Yes, sir. It was today in 1973 that the Universal Zulu Nation was founded. The brother Africa Bambaataa, coming out of the Black Spades. We talking about the gang life of the Black Spades. He was coming out of that and trying to transform.
Spades is still around.
Yep. And the Young Lords. So he was coming out of that life and trying to transform that youthful energy into something that would be more productive and that would preserve our lives a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? So the Universal Zulu Nation basically embraced it embraced dance, it embraced art, it embraced music, spoken word. This is what came out of hip hop and what the Universal Zulu Nation was trying to represent from the beginning till today. I will say this, if anybody knows right now, the founder, brother Africa Bambaataa, has been dealing with some allegations since maybe back in 2016. Was maybe even before that. He's been dealing with some allegations that are on the table right now. So right now, the leadership of the organization has shifted. Brother Ahmad Henderson is now leader of the Universal Zulu Nation while this case is still pending.
I want to shout out, if I can, Ron, I want to shout out one of my comrades, Brother Shep McDaniel, on Panther, right, who's got a squad of Zulus that he works with, right, in New York City around the community survival programs that we still try and do, in the Panther tradition, right? And then the Zulus, they help with security, he's got them working, trying to work through this difficult transition with the revelations around the brother and some others, they get through that.
Yeah.
Rhino, who had the lyrics? My father used to love that song. It's like, it's the Shore Shots, Planet Rock. What song? Was that Africa? Oh, yeah. My dad used to play that song. Yeah, my dad used to play that song all the time.
Yeah, that was a huge hit. To this day, that's a huge hit in the clubs around the world, around the entire planet. You'll hear that. You go to Europe, you can go out into Europe, anywhere.
Oh, yeah. Europe loves it because it's based on Trans Europe Express.
Exactly. Kraftwerk. That's right.
We used to play the hell out of that in the 70s.
Okay, so that's what the T-shirt is about. Okay.
That's what the T-shirt and the beads and all that. I got on the official piece to my man Swift. He's a photographer now. Eric J. Montgomery. He gave me this. This is an Africa piece that he gave me and some of my brothers with my OGV family. Yeah, so big ups to Swift. Our own right here in Newark, Brick City, the Poor Kings. I don't know if you ever seen this around. That's the Poor Kings. Then of course, you know, got the Black Bees for the people. Red, black, and green. Pan African.
Red, the black, and the green.
That's right.
Got my ankh for the life.
For the ancestors.
Oh,
that's right.
Yeah.
And I gotta get some more beads or another string for this one. This is one of the classics. You know, this also West Indian Rastafarian brothers.
Yeah.
I got
John Rastafari.
Hey, Rhino, where your pearls at, Rhino?
No pearls. No pearls. No pearls, no chucks, bro. No pearls, no chucks.
Ed, I want to know next week, can we come back and can we talk about, you have from the show, I'm sorry for the background, but with them suing, like, because they're portraying like different groups, like, good Lord, they portraying, AKAs are suing, I know because I'm multitasking, but the AKAs are suing because they're being portrayed in a sitcom, and I want us to talk about that. Is that from a legal standpoint? Do you agree with that? Should they protect their brand, or when you have a sitcom coming out trying to?
What's the name of the sitcom?
Let's talk about that next week.
What's the name of the sitcom so we can boycott the hell out of it?
Insecure.
Insecure. Yes.
All right.
Hey, but the funny part is, Aida, the person in charge of it is a black woman.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but I wonder,
can't make it go without a Negro.
There's that conversation we were having earlier.
That's right.
So let's talk, Ed, if we could talk about that. Are they protecting their brand? Is there a better way of doing it? Just bringing a lawsuit, does it just bring everybody to the table? You know, let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly about that.
All right. Well, well, Rhino, are you finished? Because Rhino may have had some other stuff.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's after 9. That was the main thing. I mean, we had to talk about the Travis situation, we had to talk about, we had to pay respects to the Zulu Nation. Also, all right, real quick, I will say this because I wasn't here last week. I do want to just say big ups to LL for his induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Big ups to Jay-Z for his induction into the Hall of Fame. That was huge. That was real huge. I think it was funny that Jay-Z got inducted as the first solo rapper when really that one should have went to LL, but they gave it to Jay-Z. So that one was a little screwy to me. That was a little funny, but big ups to both of those brothers, man, because they both deserve it. Jay is huge in our culture, in our time right now as we stand, as well as LL Cool J, because he's done huge things with Rock the Bells, the whole Rock the Bells franchise. Well, not franchise, but the whole empire of Rock the Bells. So big ups to LL, big ups to Jay-Z for their inductions into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's always a huge mark for hip hop right there. So big ups to them. That's
and
it.
Rhino, I think last week Salt and Pepper made the list last week too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I said Rhino would laugh at that. Wasn't it Salt and Pepper Zaid last week?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't pay.
You don't remember who she said? Okay.
Don't you be trying to start asking questions, Donna. Well, listen, y'all. We've come to the end of another show.
One last shout out. Birthday shout out to Pastor Ali, and also condolences to his family. Lost his nephew, DJ Cole. It was a beautiful homegoing for the young brother, but he was only 27 years old. Car accident, a big tragedy for the family. But Pastor just hit the 6'3", hit another 7. Right? So we want to give him some love and give his queen some love. He's still here and he's still doing his thing.
Also, real quick, tomorrow I'm doing the Twitch thing on twitch.tv/RhinoCMZ.
3 o'clock.
Shake up at 3 p.m. Tomorrow I'm doing a special set on the human beatbox because that's like a part of hip hop that's been forgotten about. The human beatbox, So we're gonna get into a whole human beatbox set tomorrow at 3 p.m. Twitch.tv/RhinoCMZ. Saturday Shake Up.
Right on. Shake it up, baby. Shake it up.
You got any final announcements, Donna? No questions?
No. I'm good.
All right, Chris, you got any final things you want to say?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Right.
I was happy that Jay-Z got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That was big for me. So I was happy about
Definitely.
Zaid, you good?
Monday, there's a major benefit for Sundiata Acoli. Look for Sundiata Acoli Freedom Campaign. Major benefit, Monday the 15th. It's the anniversary of Kwame Toure's passing. Long live Kwame Toure, free Sundiata.
That's right. All right, y'all. We've come to another end of the show. Of course, y'all know we want to thank our guests that were on tonight. We want to definitely say thank you to Keesha Eure, Director Keesha Eure, our young sister, doing big things in the city, making major moves. We're proud of her. And then, of course, we want to thank thank the vote team that came in. We want to thank Rukia and Brother Conrad for coming through. We appreciate everyone that was on the show tonight. Appreciate all of the co-hosts, of course, Donna, of course, Brother Zaid, hitting hard always, never going below the belt, going straight to the head. Appreciate all the hard punches. And of course, DJ Rhino, right? Never backing up, straight chasing no jokes when it comes to hip hop. Always appreciate that. And then Chris Randall, what can we say, right? Keeping it black always. Always asking the difficult questions. Whether you stand
always
in the black
studied
line
with
or the
the
white
ass
line.
too. Right on. That's right.
Whether you stand in the black or the white line, it really don't matter. The question is who you standing for.
That's right.
Right. And then of course myself, right?
That's a good signature.
Right. I only go but one way. I don't know any other way to go. I keep it black. That's
right
it.
on, baby. Right on.
So we thank y'all for another edition of All Politics and Local. We'll be back next week. Of course, y'all know it's the Mayor's Forum next week. Our beloved brother, Mayor Raz J. Baraka. When he come through, we do our best to hold him to what he says. We keep him black right here on All Politics and Local. America's number one political hip-hop radio talk show. See y'all next week.
You don't stop.